Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Executive Perspective. Afternoon, Rob. How are you?
Afternoon, Ron. How are you? Looks like we got a friendly guest that we've seen before, but it looks like it's going to be a really good show. From the background information we've gotten a little bit, a little humorous already, so it should be very fun.
We welcome to the stage retired Deputy Inspector Tony Raganella, formerly of the NYPD. Tony has, like you said, been a guest on our show as expert content guest when we talked about disorder control and the NYPD being out of control, really. And then he came on as a guest co-host one evening also. So we've been talking about having Tony on to talk about his career in the NYPD and life after the job. And so that's what today's show is going to be about. Today's going to be Tony's show. It's going to be about, he's going to walk us through his career and then also what he's doing since he left the job a few years ago. So, Tony, welcome to the stage once again, and welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. I'm very, very excited to be here because I know this is going to be it's going to be a really fun show. And Ron, especially, I want to wish you a happy birthday yesterday.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations on making it another year.
Well, it's a little easier doing it off the job than on the job. We got to all admit that, right?
Oh, no doubt. No, as you can see from my virtual background, I'm stress-free. I have no problems here.
Is it virtual stress though? I'm not sure. You know.
Well, once in a while I make up my own stress, but I'm all right. I work better under stress, so
yeah.
I'm good.
So we're gonna go through your career, the ups and downs of the NYPD, as we all have had, and then talk about your career as an executive also, and then what you did afterwards. So why don't you, for the audience sake, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and what made you think, hey, I want to be an NYPD cop.
Yeah, so actually it's funny because I get asked that question a lot when I'm out doing my speaking stuff and everything that I've been doing in my my career after the NYPD, which I'll talk about more later. But it's interesting because I did not have anybody in my family that was involved in law enforcement. In fact, in a way, it was kind of like on the other side of law enforcement more than anything. But it was I can go back to, and I think you have a multitude of pictures, some of which I don't even know what you're going to put up there, Ron. And I'm
what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of anxious about what kind of surprises are going to be waiting for me over this course of time here, but it'll be good. But I can remember ever since being a little kid, how we always say, I know it's cliche, but we always say that this profession is a calling. For me, it really, really was. Ever since I was a little kid, and there's the photo of me when I was 6 years old. I just love being in a uniform. I love the idea of being a cop. And anytime I was out with family or friends or whatever, and I saw police officers doing their work, I was just captivated and mesmerized by officers doing their work. And it was just something that always stuck in the back of my mind as I was growing up, that I kind of had a propensity towards law enforcement and learning about the work that they do and everything that goes on with that. And I can remember being a little kid. I don't know if you guys remember or if you guys played this. I grew up on Long Island in Huntington. And as a kid, we used to play a game called Ring Alivio. And then, of course, we would always play cops and robbers and everything else. And I distinctly remember being a young kid out in the neighborhood, running around with the kids. And whenever we would play cops and robbers, I always had to be the cop. If you told me that today I was going to be the robber, I would start crying and I would run home and I wouldn't play the game. I was a little baby. Like, I had to be the cop. I just loved the idea of catching the bad guy and protecting people and saving everybody from harm and putting the bad guy in jail and everything else. And so it was just growing up, that was always in the back of my mind to be able to do that. I grew up in a family. There was six of us, six siblings. I was the baby, so traditional Italian family. All my grandparents were off the boat from Italy, and like I said, nobody was involved in law enforcement. Growing up, I had the opportunity to, for high school, I went to Lasal Military Academy out in Oakdale on Long Island. And the opportunity was offered to me to go there. Unlike some of the students that were there, and that's me as a senior, all dressed up in my dress grays. But some of the kids that went to that school were definitely pretty bad kids that were forced to go there. And then the other half of the kids wanted to go there because they wanted the better education and everything else. And I can't begin to tell you why I had the foresight at the age of 14 to realize that public school just wasn't where it was at. And I was a typical B and C student, wasn't really getting great grades. I was, kind of hanging out with kids that probably I shouldn't have been hanging out with too much. And when the opportunity presented itself, and my dad asked me if I wanted to go to Lasal, one of my oldest brother went to Lasal a long time ago, so I kind of knew about the school. But my oldest brother, when he went there, he was forced to go. He wasn't one of the ones that volunteered to go. But I went and did a tour of the school. I loved it, and I said, you know what, at that age, I don't know how I realized it, but I just said, this is where I want to be. And I know I'm going to get a better education here at Lasal than I would at a public school. The downside to it, obviously, at that time, it was an all-boys school. We were there. It was a boarding school, so I got to come home on the weekends. But the camaraderie and the leadership that I learned at the age of 14 going forward, I had a great head start for my law enforcement career. Learning all the stuff that I learned at Lasal,
I we're going to get into it. I know you're well educated, and back then, were you into history and the military history and things like that?
No, I actually,
you, and I know you like hats. I could see here you like hats.
I'm a hat guy.
Like military history, right?
Yeah.
I like your hats with the military history. It's just something that I came across in my research.
There's the first gotcha. I know there's going to be plenty more, Ron. Thanks for putting that up. But so that's a photo when we were at Police Management Institute up at West Point. You could see that I have my Tanqueray and tonic in my hand, and I decided that I wanted to be like the general there in the picture. And the closest thing that I could get to a hat was the ice bucket. So I put the ice bucket on my head from the hotel. And there's the picture. But yes, so definitely, definitely. But so I will tell you,
Tony, real quick. In the military academy that you went to, did you have to wear a uniform every day? Was that really that was the standard uniform? Like,
no, I think
that was part of it.
Right?
So that uniform that you see me in the picture of, that was our dress grays that we did when we did parades or any type of ceremony activities. We would put on the dress grays. And we actually, every year, Lasal Military Academy during that time in the 1970s and 80s, we actually led the Columbus Day Parade in New York City down Fifth Avenue. We were the first school to come down the line every year. So we wore those uniforms. But during the day, when we were at classes, we wore just regular, gray pants and a blue shirt. It was a uniform, and as you assimilated every year, depending on how good you did with your grades and your behavior and everything else, and what kind of activity you did, you would get rank and grow up on the job to assimilate into leadership positions in the school.
This is a two Lewis AM is giving a shout out to LSMA, so maybe a former.
I know exactly who that is. That's one of my classmates that knows that I was going to be on the show. Luis, good to see you. Thanks for coming on and supporting me. Appreciate it.
And normally we try not to bring up all the comments just so everybody knows the format. We follow the format of the other shows. When we're doing an interview of a guest, we usually try to limit the comments along the bottom. When we're not ignoring the comments in the chat. We will bring up some. I'll say hello to Hassan. You're a faithful follower. We appreciate that. $9.99. Happy birthday, Inspector. Enjoy. Forget Mo and his crew. Talking about Eric and John. Take over the podcast with Chief Cash only. I hope Mo approved this message. I'm going to send you a bottle of olive oil for you and cancel Mo's order. And you have to know Mo to understand that comment, but he's a faithful follower. Appreciate it, Mo. Thank you. And thank everybody else for all the well wishes. But just so everybody's aware, you know, and you also, I know you're going to bring it up later. You're getting shout outs for Rising Star. We'll talk about that in a little while. But Woon Woon and also Bones 1999. You know, afternoon, guys. Looking forward to the show. Also, kudos for creating Rising Star courses and forum, which is really great source for info for rank and file. We'll get into the Rising Star in a little while. I just wanted to bring that up, let everybody know that's the normal format. So we're not ignoring you. We are monitoring the chat. We'll bring a few up, but there you go. Luis Marin is saying hello. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you for the love. I feel it. I appreciate it. We'll definitely talk about some Rising Star stuff throughout the podcast for sure. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, which kind of you'll see as I go through my stories, my trials and tribulations throughout my career and my life and everything, how I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. And you know, I got a lot of my faith and hope from my mom, and a lot of my perseverance and attitude of never giving up from my father. So that combination, in conjunction with Lasal Military Academy, kind of worked towards my benefit. And a lot of people don't know, but obviously my family knows, but a lot of people don't know, when I was growing up, I suffered from a very, very bad case of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And I was hospitalized numerous times for it. And as a result of that, while I was in Lasal Military Academy as a senior, I was offered a commission to West Point, to go to West Point. And I had to turn it down because of my illness and because I was sick. And I look back on that now, and I definitely, if I wasn't sick, that was definitely the trajectory that my career and my life was going to take, was probably to go into the military and continue on with that. But because of my illness and everything that was going on, I couldn't do it. I had to turn it down. But because of that, it brought me to another path, which was ended up being the NYPD later on. So after I graduated Lasal, I ended up going to actually Nassau Community College. I couldn't go to a traditional regular college that I wanted to go to because I had to be close to my doctors, and I was dealing with a lot of medical issues at the time. So I was taking part-time courses at Nassau Community. Then from there, once I got on the job with the NYPD, which is a whole nother funny story, not really funny, but I'll tell you what happened with that. I progressed into continuing on with my education while I was on the job. So I was juggling a lot of different balls. But so
what year did you get on, Tony?
I got on in 1995, but I was supposed to get on in 1992. And what ended up happening was I took the entrance exam to get on with the NYPD. I scored very, very high on it. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go into the NYPD or law enforcement. I wasn't sure that it was going to be the NYPD. I just knew that I wanted a career in law enforcement. And I applied to a lot of different agencies, some down south, some federal agencies, a whole bunch of different agencies. But when I took the exam for the NYPD, I scored very high on it. I was, very good academically. I was a good test taker. I knew how to read and do all that stuff, which you'll see benefits with, the whole Rising Star thing later on, about what we offer and everything. But when the NYPD exam came up and I took it, I scored high enough that they called me right away, and I went through all the background and processing for it. And when I went for the medical exam, I got disqualified because of my history with everything that I was going on through with my illness. So they basically said, you're disqualified. You're not going to be able to come on to the NYPD. Have a nice day. And that's the end of it. And I said to myself, well, that's not going to work. Like, this is the job that I want. And I wanted to go on to the NYPD because I knew it was the biggest agency in America. I knew that that's where all the action was, and I knew I was going to learn how to be a cop fast in the NYPD. And I knew because of the way they do the promotions on the NYPD, I had an opportunity because I was a good test taker that I would be able to move up the ranks. So NYPD was it for me. So I kept fighting, and it took me 3 years to convince the Department of Citywide Administrative Services and the NYPD Medical Division and everybody else that I could perform the duties of a police officer regardless of what my past medical history was. And I kept fighting for it, and finally they relented, and I was able to get on the job right before my entrance exam list was expired. I mean, it was like right down to the wire. So I got into the class of 1995, and I was in the academy. We actually, my academy class, 1995, was an experimental academy class. I don't know if you guys remember. We were the 9-month academy. They had us in there for 9 months instead of the traditional 6 months. And what they did was, after the traditional 6 months of the academy were over, they sent us out in our gray shirts. We had our gun and shield day, and they sent us out to do field training in our grays. And we did a rotation of going to transit, housing, patrol, and doing traffic duty for I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. And then we went back to the academy for the remainder of the 9 months. And we were supposed to talk about what we learned, and it was like an experimental kind of an academy. But of course, typical for the NYPD, they didn't think this whole thing through. And when we got back to the academy for those last 3 months, the instructors had no material to teach us, and we sat around watching movies for 3 months in the academy on East 20th Street because they had nothing to teach us, and we goofed off for 3 months till we graduated. So I went in June of 95. We graduated in March of 96 because of the 9-month thing. And our class, the class that I went into, that was like in the beginning, towards the beginning of the mass hiring that they were doing with the Safe Street Act and everything else. My academy class started out as 2,300 recruits. And we ended up graduating, I think, a little over 1,900 or close to 2,000. Ended up graduating at the end of the 9 months. And I did very well in the academy. Academically, I think you may have a picture. I got an award at graduation. I had the second highest academic average. I felt like a big shot up there with Bratton and Giuliani collecting my award. My family was proud of me. It was great. That was really a great day, sentimental day for me, to be able to graduate after what I went through to get on the job. That day became very special for me to be able to graduate and do that. After I graduated the academy, another funny story, I get, as we're sitting in the class during that 9-month academy, that the haircut, Eric, it's if I put my head down, you can see the horseshoe right there. I just got it cut today for this podcast, so it'll grow in. Don't worry about it. And despite that, I still got more hair than Ron. So
it doesn't take much.
It's all good. It's all good, brother.
I know. Yeah, I know. There's instances, like I said, you like hats. You like to. You're talking about hair, right? You also like to cover your hair a lot.
Oh, here we go.
You always seem to like to wear hats and cover your hair. I'm telling you, I think you're into history, because here I'm envisioning like old Egyptian times.
Yes, that was me and Vinny Patty in PMI up at West Point. I think we were a little hungover that morning, and we decided to get dressed up to go into class that day. And we decided that I think those were the covers for the armrest on the couches at West Point, and we decided to dress up as Arabians.
From the suite that we shared, yeah.
Yeah, and we went into class like that. So that was that was definitely fun time. So I'm getting ready to graduate the academy, and they give you, of course, the like they do with promotions, they ask you where you want to go and whatever, which didn't really mean anything. As you know from the promotional thing, there's a reason why they call it the dream sheet, because you're dreaming if you think that you're going to get what you put down or whatever. But anyway, supposedly a family member had a hook with somebody, and when I graduated the police academy, I was supposed to go to the 111 precinct in Bayside for a nice short commute back to Long Island. And I'll never forget the day the orders come down. We're getting ready to graduate from the police academy, and they're reading off all the names, and they get to my name, and they're like, Raganella, 7'5". And I look up, and I'm like, and I tell the instructor, I go, sir, I go, I think there's a mistake on that sheet. And he goes, no, there's no mistake. You're going to the 7'5". And I'm like, I don't even freaking know where the 7'5" is. Where is it? He's like, East New York. And then all the guys in the class are like, oh man, you are in for it, bro. You're in for it. And I'm like, East New York. I'm like, oh, this is not good. This is not good. But I will tell you, I go to the 7'5", and I was there for a year and a half. And as you can imagine, 7'5", sink or swim. It was we learned quick. My first foot post was right on New Lots Avenue. I spent many a night. You did not see back then. You didn't get the inside of a car for at least a year. You were out on the foot post. Once in a while, you get picked up by the guys to backfill if somebody's partner didn't come in. But you were not seeing a steady car for a very long time in the 7'5". But a lot of learning opportunities in the 7'5". As far as tactics are concerned, we learned very, very quick. And I took all that information and used it not only to my benefit, but as I was teaching younger cops that were coming up on the job as I was getting older. We've lost sight, I think, in the department a lot from what I've seen lately about teaching tactics and everything else. You like when I got in the car in the 7'5", when I was backfilling, I was in the car with guys that had 15, 20 years on patrol. You just don't see that anymore. Now the kids that are coming out of the academy, they're being taught by guys that have 3 years on a job. Like it's just not the same as it was back then. But 7'5" was a good learning experience.
Tony, let me jump in. I have a couple questions. One, you said your family made a phone call for you. What did your dad do that or your mom or that was able to make a phone call? What was their relationship with the NYPD? Because you said you were the first person from your family in law enforcement. So I just like to know what the connection was and how that hook existed between your family and people in the NYPD.
Well, so I'll tell you, this was another funny little tidbit. My dad, after I graduated Lasal and I was going part-time to Nassau Community and going to school, I was working part-time with my dad in between, going to school also. My dad was in the construction business and did some land development and stuff like that. He wanted, he wanted me and my other brothers to kind of follow in his footsteps and take on with the business. My dad did very well. He had some down times where he lost a lot of money, but in the end, he did very well for himself and the family. And he wanted us to follow in the footsteps. And as much as I tried to work with him and for him, I just wasn't into it. Like it wasn't satisfying work for me. Although, yeah, you could make money doing it. As I said, growing up, I just had that thing in my head. I had to be a cop, and driving around on the streets and hanging out with my friends after I graduated high school. I met a Suffolk County police officer who to this day is one of my dearest friends, Mike Montavano, who grew up in the Suffolk County Police Department and got to the rank of captain out there before he retired. But I learned a lot from him, and that just pushed me even more to want to become a cop. So when I finally took the test and went home and told my father and my mother that this is what I'm going to do with my life, initially it didn't go over very well at all. Yeah. My dad was like, he used some choice words, and he was like, I'm not going to repeat the F-bombs and the things that he called me, but he's like, what? He's like, you're going to throw your life away and do that? Like why? He goes, you're too smart for that job. And I looked at him and I'm like, wait, I'm too smart for that job. Like, what are you saying? Cops are stupid? And he's like, no, I didn't mean it like that. He goes, but what I mean is because you're academically gifted, like you could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, like you stay in school and do anything that you want. Like, why do you want to be a cop? And I remember telling him, I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Doctor, lawyer, babysitter, all that stuff. Like that's all stuff that a cop does in one day on one tour. Like I'm going to be able to do all of that stuff and have fun doing it. Like this is what I want to do. And of course, my mother, because I'm the baby of the family and the Italian family, my mother was wigging out. My baby's he's not gonna be safe. He's gonna get hurt. I don't want you to do this. I'm gonna worry about you, whatever. So my dad had some, I don't remember what the connection was, something with somebody that he knew that was in the executive office with the PBA at the time, with the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. And they told him, don't worry, I could, they bullshitted him. I could get your kid into the 111. Don't worry about it, right? So that day that I'm sitting in the class, I'm waiting Raganella 111. It didn't go that way. That's when I started to find out that the job is not everything that you think it is, right? But like I said, in hindsight, it was better off that it went that way because of what I learned in the 7.5 was awesome.
So you're just saying that 30 years ago, the PBA was doing, just as much for its members as they are now.
Nothing's changed. Everything's full circle. It's all good. Yeah, no doubt. So while I'm in the 7.5, for a year and a half, the opportunity comes along that the Brooklyn North, and that's my partner from Brooklyn North Task Force. I ended up going to Brooklyn North Task Force after a year and a half of being in the 7.5. The opportunity presented itself that the task force was looking for guys. I didn't know much about the task force or what it did. I just knew that the task force back then had the whole tour of Brooklyn North, all 10 precincts. And you go out, you do enforcement, you do some crowd control stuff. And I said, you know what? I want to give it a try and see what the rest of Brooklyn North looked like. That was my partner from the 7.5. We went together to Brooklyn North Task Force, Randy Klodowski. And I tell you, worked with him for 3 years together in Brooklyn North Task Force. And I learned fast, like, as you're growing up and you hear all the stories about how connected you actually become with your partner. If you have a long-term partner that you work with, it was incredible how we could do car stops and do different jobs and just look at each other and know what each other was thinking tactically and everything else. It was a really, really good time we had together. A lot of fun stuff, a lot of crazy stuff that we got into, some good collars and different stuff that we did.
And 511s?
A lot of 511s for sure. That was the task force flavor of the day before you get
just for our non-NYPD viewers, a 511 is a suspended license arrest. Something that the task forces were very big into.
Yes, and whenever you needed overtime, we did our tours were 6 at night till 2 in the morning. So if we didn't get any decent collars before 12 midnight, from 12 to 1:30 in the morning, the hunt was on for anybody with a suspended license to get some overtime and take the bad drivers off the street. But you know what? I tell you honestly, as much razzing as everybody got for making the aggravated unlicensed operation arrests, I always took it one step further, and I would use it as an opportunity to voucher the car and look through the car. And a lot of times I would come up with drugs or a gun, and that simple arrest that you thought was just going to be a 511 aggravated unlicensed operation sometimes turned into a really good collar. So it was good. We had a lot of fun working on that. But I tell you what, Brooklyn North Task Force, that's when I started to get a little bit of a flavor for doing crowd management and crowd control. Our CO at the time, one of the best COs that I had, and one of my mentors on the job was Ron Schindel. Was the CO of the task force at the time. He was a real hard charger, and I became close with him. We were really good workers, and he was the type of boss that if you worked hard, he would give you the shirt off his back, and if you were doing nothing, he was going to deal with you, and that kind of mentored me into being the same type of boss as I grew up on the job. If your heart's in the right place, I'll look out for you and take care of you. But if you're not looking to do the right thing and your head's not in the right spot and you just, bucking the system, I'll deal with it. I'm not just going to look the other way because you're going to get people hurt. And that's not good.
Is he still with Port Authority, Ron?
He is. He's a chief with Port Authority now.
Oh, chief. Wow.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. He went over as a captain, I think, right? He got hired as a captain.
Yep. So during 9/11, he was in charge of Ground Zero operations with the NYPD. and then after he retired, he went over to Port Authority. He's another one like me that loves the uniform and can't stay out of uniform and loves doing stuff. So if Ron, if you're watching, hello, and we got to get together soon. So I learned a lot from him though, about being a boss and how to run a unit and how to foster morale in a unit. We had a Brooklyn North Task Force 1997, was a 97 or 98. One of those years, we won the unit citation. We did so much great stuff in the task force with arrests and different stuff. One stat that I'll give you, we had a DWI unit in Brooklyn North Task Force. That year that we got the unit citation, we actually, the Brooklyn North Task Force affected more DWI arrests in 1 year than all of the highway units put together that year. So it was a really good unit. The esprit de corps was phenomenal. Everybody got along for the most part, and we worked well together. We did a lot of war demonstration protests and different stuff, and we were the real deal. And it was encouraging because when we would show up to details and we were requested on mobilizations to respond somewhere for crowd control, you would hear the bosses say, "Oh, thank God, Brooklyn North Task Force is here," because we were the hard chargers. We were the real deal when we went out. So that's how I got a taste for doing the crowd control stuff, and I started liking it. And it was a good unit, and I had fun. So when moving on, during all this time, I went back to school. I got my associate's degree at Nassau Community in criminal justice.
Did you get that because you knew you needed it to become a sergeant, or because
Yes.
you just want? Yeah, okay.
Yep. So I said I got to finish my degrees. I got to get, and I eventually said I got to get my bachelor's degree because I knew I was going to keep trying to move up the ranks as high as I could. So I went back to school, got that. Then after graduation from Nassau Community, I enrolled in New York Institute of Technology and started taking classes there. And I got my bachelor's degree from New York Institute of Technology in behavioral science with a minor in criminal justice. And during that time, I think it was the 1999 sergeant's exam. I took that. I scored really, really well. I was list number 45 on the, I think 17,000 people. 17,000 cops took the exam, or 14,000, somewhere around there.
Wait, I got $1 million question right here. What promotional school did you use first to get to the sergeant's list number of what you said, 45?
Yeah, well, it wasn't Rising Star Promotions because we didn't have that yet.
You would have been number one with Rising Star.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'll tell you, the only reason why I only got 3 questions wrong on my sergeant's exam, and if it wasn't for the seniority, because I took the test with 3 years on the job, 4 years on the job, 3 or 4 years on the job, I got passed over a couple of times because I had to wait until I had the 5 years on the job to get promoted. But if it wasn't for the seniority points, I probably would have scored even higher than the 45 number. But I went to the school PTS. And
you read a lot about Tondaleo.
So at the time, I was dating my now wife, Nicole, and I used to literally, not even joking, I would lay in bed at night. Back then we had cassette tapes, right? I would put the cassette in and I would fall asleep listening to the patrol guide being read to me over and over again. And my wife at the time, my girlfriend, was like, you got to be kidding me with this. Like, I can't listen to this shit, right? And I'm like, I got to get promoted. Like, this is what it's going to take, and I was just, I was crazy about promotional exams and getting promoted. So I was going to multiple schools and just, trying to do what I could to score high. And so
where'd you go when you got promoted?
Yep. So what ends up happening is, I get another hook, right? So now I'm in BMOC.
A better one, I hope.
I actually did. I got a real one this time. And what ends up happening is I'm in BMOC and they're getting ready to cut the orders for where everybody's going to go. And I make a phone call and I'm like to a friend of mine who was affiliated with Lasal Military Academy at the time, and he came on the job also. and he had a very big hook with at the time with the chief of patrol was Chief Scanlon at the time. And he had a very good connection with him. So he says, "Hey, where do you want to go when you graduate and you get promoted to sergeant?" And I said, "We're going to try this one more time. I want to go to the 111." And I ended up getting it. And so I distinctly remember, the orders are cut. I'm going to the 111, and I tell Ron Shindell at the time, he's like, "Hey, Tony, what's the deal? Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm going to the 111." And he looked at me, he put his head down, he shook his head, and he's like, "Are you effing kidding me?" And I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "You are never, ever going to last there." And I go, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You're a hard charging Brooklyn North cop. You are never going to make it in the 111. And actually, that's funny, that picture. When I got to the 111, they were doing that trial thing where the sergeants were wearing, under Commissioner Safer,
Yeah.
the sergeant who were wearing the white shirts. So for like 3 months or 6 months or whatever, we had to go out and buy white shirts or whatever. But so I ended up getting the 111, and and Ron was like, "You're gonna hate the 111. You're gonna wish you were back in Brooklyn North." And he was right. I get to the 111, and I walk through the door, and I walk in, and I'm getting my orientation from everybody that's there. I'm meeting the lieutenants, the CO, everybody else, and one of the female cops that worked behind the desk. She was like the desk officer assistant on a steady basis. She's walking me around and behind the desk, and she's like, "These are all the different logs that we have and all the stuff that we have back here." And I look at one of the logs, and on the binder of the log, written in magic marker, it says "barking dog log." So I look at it, and I turn my head, and I'm looking at it, and I pull the log out, and I go, and I start laughing.
Dog or the lost dog log? Because the 111 had both.
Barking dog log. So I go, I start laughing. I go, "Oh, this is funny." I go, "Whose joke is this?" And she goes, and she's looking at me. She goes, "That's not a joke." And I go, "What do you mean?" So she goes, "This is what we do here. Like, there's really a barking dog log." And I'm like, "What?" So right away, I started getting the feeling that maybe this is not going to work out well. And it was a very slow command. As Ron, you were there, right, in the 111?
I was the XO and the CO of the 111. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I was there in what was it, 2000, 2001, right before 9/11. I was there. And I remember I had one of my drivers takes me out on one of my first tours on patrol, and I got the radio sitting in the armrest of the RMP, and I was doing a day tour. We went out, we got a bagel and a cup of coffee and a tea, and we drive up into all the mansions in Douglaston, and we're sitting up there, and I didn't even realize I was doing this. But after about 10 minutes of sitting there, I didn't realize that I kept playing with the volume on the radio, and subconsciously I didn't realize I was doing it. I was just doing it, and finally my driver gives me the elbow, and he's like, "Hey, Sarge," he goes, "Stop playing with the radio. You're not going to hear anything on there." And I'm like, I look, and I realized what I was doing, and I'm like, "We've been sitting here for like 45 minutes, and nothing's come over the radio." He goes, "Welcome to Queens North." He goes, This is the 111," and I'm like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." So I was like, "I need more action. This is just not, it's not working out." And then one bad incident that I had, where I went on a tirade with the guys, and everybody was like, what's up with this guy?" There was one of very few gun runs that happened in the 111, and it happened on Bell Boulevard. And so I'm with my driver, and it was a 4 to 12. We get to Bell Boulevard, to one of the bars where there was supposed to be a gun run. I show up, and I'm the only one there. And I'm like looking around, and I get on the radio, and I'm like, "111 Sergeant." I'm like, where's all the units?" And so she starts raising units, and everybody's like, "Yeah, all right, we're en route." We're like, they were very just lackadaisical about it. It took like 10 minutes before a car showed up. And then one car showed up, and I said, "All right." It ended up being 90X. It was unfounded. It was, there's nothing going on. But what I did was I got really pissed off about the fact that nobody was backing anybody up, especially the sergeant, right, who was the first one on the scene. So I go on the radio, and I'm like, "Central 111 Sergeant." I said, "Have every one of my units out on patrol, 10-2 the command forthwith." So she goes, excuse me? I go, have all my units 10-2, and everybody goes back. So I go back to the command, and Vinny, I see the comment. After what happened, I am never going to ask Siri another question.
We can't even tell the story.
I can't even tell the story because it's such a bad. It's got foul language in it. The short story is me, Vinny, Ron, all of us, the PMI group. We were in a car. We went out. We had a couple of cocktails, and we were joking around because at that time Siri was kind of like a new thing on the cell phones, and we were joking around about all the different things you could ask Siri. And so Vinny Patty goes on the phone and asks Siri, can you find me? And it was a bad word. And Siri comes back and says, oh yes, I'm calling Anthony Raganella right now. And we had to pull the car over. We almost fell out of the car. We were dying laughing. So that's been the running joke about Siri, and be careful what you ask Siri because it might come back. But anyway, so I bring all the units back to the 111, and I bring them into the roll call room, and I tear the ass out of everybody, and I'm like, listen, I go, I don't know how you guys work here. I go, but I'm going to tell you right now, when there's a gun run and one of us are out there responding to a heavy job, you guys better back each other up. I said, I don't ever want to see this happen again. Like, this is not good. And that's when I realized that maybe Ron Shadell was right, that Queens North, the proverbial Queens Marines, for a Brooklyn North cop, it took getting used to. And you think, like people on the outside, you're like, oh, everybody, we're all the same NYPD patch. But as you guys know, borough to borough, there's different cultures, not only in different boroughs, but even in different precincts. You get different kinds of cultures that have different reputations and different things that go on. So
just as a caveat, being there twice, there's also a lot of very good cops in the 111.
No doubt. There were some really, really good guys. I had a couple of go-to guys that were really good. But I just it wasn't what I was used to. We'll just leave it at that.
I've said it many times. We used to be called Nassau County West.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. We used to carry you as the patrol supervisor. You had Nassau County's radio.
Yes. Yep.
Right.
Yep. No doubt. So next step is
we'll get to that, Vinny.
Yeah. The lieutenant's exam is called 2003. Wait,
as a sergeant, you only.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot a whole thing. So I leave the 111. Bob Bonifati, the CEO of Queens North Task Force at the time. There's the picture of the armory, the Flushing Armory, where Queens North Task Force was. Being that I was a Brooklyn North Task Force cop, I'm on the desk in the 111 one day, and Bob Bonifati comes walking in, the CEO of Queens North Task Force, and he looks at me and he's like, I heard about you. You were a Brooklyn North Task Force cop, right? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you looking to leave here and come to Queens North Task Force? And I'm like, maybe. I said, what do you got? And man, what a bad spot he put me in at first. It all worked out in the end, but he's like, I need a training sergeant. And I'm like, all right. I go, that sounds good. Within like 2 weeks, I was transferred over to Queens North Task Force. What Bob didn't tell me was that the current training sergeant that he had like 25, 30 years on the job and didn't know that he was being replaced by me. So when I got there, I was already on bad footing with everybody, with the other supervisors who were like, oh, who's this hotshot kid that's coming in here and taking his place, and that's not right, and this and that. So I had to prove myself, and it was, but it all worked out in the end. I spent a couple of years in Queens North Task Force as a training sergeant, did a lot of great things there, and during that time is when 9/11 happened, and we as everybody did. We all pitched in and helped out on the pile and doing everything that we had to do during 9/11. And I had a great run in Queens North Task Force, which again, just like Brooklyn North Task Force, it kind of built my liking for the whole crowd control and crowd management stuff. And I was learning more and more as I went on, because now as a training sergeant, I was responsible to teach the guys in Queens North Task Force how to do it right. And so I had to learn how to do it and come up with training and lesson plans and different stuff. And I had fun doing that. And I was liking it.
Tony, I don't want to slow you down because we're 45 minutes into it and you're still a sergeant.
I'm getting to the lieutenant part.
Yeah,
it goes faster for me.
But I think it's important to the audience because the audience, you know, they like to listen. They like to listen to us. They like to hear our stories and our experiences on the job. So I know you glazed over it, and it's something that we don't. It's not like it's laissez-faire, and I know it's not a reason. So tell the audience, you know, what was your assignment? I know you were the training sergeant at the task force, but the task force is on 9/11. It was a level 4 mobilization. Everybody was, you know, suit up and get out there and go there. What was your task on 9/11? Like I know on mine, I actually got assigned to assigning everybody to everything. So, you know, you had to have certain people doing certain things. And then I was down at the pile on the 12th. But so what was your experience with 9/11 itself?
So, yeah, I'll tell you the short version of the story was on 9/11 itself. That morning, on that day, I was scheduled to do a 4 to 12. So when all of this first started in the morning, I was just waking up and starting my day, not realizing what was going on in the morning. I didn't have the TV on or anything, and I get a hey Tom, how you doing, Tom? Good to see you. You too. So that morning, I get a phone call from my wife Nicole, and she's hysterical crying, and I'm like, what's going on? She was at work, and she's like, did you see the news? Like, don't go to work. And I'm like, please don't go to work. I'm like, what are you talking about? What happened? And she's like, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I'm like, what? I'm like, and I knew I was going to get mobilized, right? But at that time, as we all thought, it was just like a little commuter plane or whatever. It wasn't like we didn't really know what was going on. So I'm like, all right, let me go. I hung up the phone and I put the TV on, trying to listen to the AM radio and trying to and I'm getting dressed because I know I'm just going into work because I knew we were going to get mobilized or whatever. And as I'm driving into work is when the second plane hit, and that's when we realized. I'll tell you one of the few times in my career where I distinctly remember literally the hairs on my body standing straight up, and I as scared as I was because I realized at that moment we're at war and we're being attacked. The country's being attacked. The faster I went towards getting into work, right? And it's one of those surreal moments that we all have on the job where we run into danger, where our brains are saying this is not good, but you can't help it. Your experience and your training sends you in. So I get into work.
Good.
And I get to the Flushing Armory, and by the time I get in, it was about 10. I remember signing in the command log at 10:20 a.m. And at that time, I don't think I'm trying to. A lot of the stuff I blocked out because I don't want to remember half of the stuff that happened that day because it's horrible stuff. But I don't think that both of the buildings came down at that time. But anyway, at 10:20, or maybe they did. In any event, anybody that came in, Bob Bonifati and the task force that was working had already gone into Manhattan when it first happened. So anybody that was coming in afterwards, they held us back because they didn't know we were in very close proximity to LaGuardia Airport, where the Flushing Armory is. So we were protecting LaGuardia Airport because we didn't know what else. All the planes were being forced to land and everything else. We didn't know what was going on. So they said, hold tight at the base and don't come into Manhattan until we get a grasp of everything else that's going on around the city. So I was held back to handle what was going on with LaGuardia Airport and everything in downtown Flushing. I worked until 2 o'clock in the morning on the 12th, went home, took a shower, and came back for 5 o'clock in the morning on the 12th and went right down to Manhattan. And so on the 12th, the morning of, obviously, you guys know nothing changed. Everything was still on fire. It was, it was like that for weeks. But I get down there, and my function was we had a command post set up on the west side, West Street, on the West Side Highway there, right by the financial buildings. And my specific job that day was to take a piece of paper and a pen with a dust mask and walk through the entire pile and determine what streets were open enough to be able to get dump trucks and ambulances into, and radio that information back to the command post. Needless to say, I couldn't talk through a dust mask on the radio, so I had to keep taking the dust mask off to talk. And I still have my activity log from 9/11, and I wrote, like, on the fly page, I made a little map of the immediate area of 9/11 and all the streets that were closed off, and I remember writing in there the words "total destruction," and I still have that memo book to this day. But it was so anyway. So that was that first day that I was there, and then for weeks after that, we just kept going back down, and we were doing searches for body parts on rooftops and just all kinds of crazy stuff that went on in 9/11.
All right. I mean to bring up anything, but it's an important part of our careers that we tend to try to kind of gloss over, but it's important that people don't forget, and it's not even taught in schools. It's disheartening. So I just wanted to touch on it. So all right, bring us up to getting promoted to lieutenant.
Yeah, so they call the lieutenant's exam. I'm again a sergeant at Queens Law Task Force. They call the lieutenant's exam in 2003. And I'm all over it. I'm like, yep, I'm gonna ace this one. I'm gonna do really good on this. I wanna hit this one hard. Study hard for it. I had a study group with a couple of different people that we studied with, and I did really well on the lieutenant's exam. My list number was 39 on the lieutenant's exam. I got 5 questions wrong and ended up list number 39. So I got promoted right away off of that. And when I got promoted to lieutenant, I knew I had to get out of Queens North. And on the dream sheet, I put every available Brooklyn North command to get back to Brooklyn North as a lieutenant. And that wasn't. I didn't need a hook for that. I just put it down on the sheet, and I got it. So what ends up happening is I go to. I end up my first stop in Brooklyn North as a lieutenant was the 8-1 precinct in Bed-Stuy, and I had a great time. Learned a lot as a lieutenant in the 8-1. My CO at the time was Phil Banks, and listen, I know all the bad press that's out there lately, and all the stuff that's going on with Phil. But I can tell you my personal experience. I don't have one bad thing to say about Phil Banks. He was always aces with me, looked out for me on many occasions, and taught me a lot of good lessons and a lot of good stuff. And
you mean nothing bad to say about him back then?
Nothing bad to say about him back then. And honestly, Rob, I'll tell you this now, because of a story that I'm gonna tell you eventually about what happened to me with the media. I will tell you that I take everything that's in the media with a grain of salt. And when I compare that to what's printed in the media as to what really happened in my story, which I'll tell later on, and then I compare that to what I read in the media about Phil Banks, and then compare it to the Phil Banks that I worked with in 2 separate commands and got to know very well, I take it with a grain of salt. Honestly, I really do. Listen, do people change? Do things happen? It's possible, but I can only say good things about Phil. I've never seen anything questionable with Phil Banks. Me personally, I haven't. And that's just, I'm keeping it real, and I'm being honest about it.
No, I appreciate that. I just think of Harrington, who I knew, and how he got caught up in that whole thing, that's where I think there is some truth to whatever's, slated there. But I appreciate your opinion, and I appreciate your honesty. I mean, you knew the man before those things happened. And like a lot of us know bosses before, things have gone awry and things happen. But yeah, I appreciate your honesty.
Yep. So when Phil gets promoted from DI to full bird, he goes over to the 7-9 and brings me with him over to the 7-9 as a lieutenant. So I was in the 7-9 as a lieutenant, working for Phil again in Bed-Stuy and in the 7-9. and we had a really, really, I mean, awesome group of lieutenants. We always joked around with Phil saying, you know, you got the best crew of lieutenants that you could ever have. I worked as a lieutenant in the 7-9. I was working with Mike LePetri, Rodney Harrison. We were all lieutenants together, and it was just, we really, really had a lot of fun and did really, really good work in the 7-9. It was good stuff. And then during my tenure at the 7-9, I get selected to go to the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. And I will be honest and tell you, absolutely the pinnacle of my career in law enforcement was to go down to the FBI Academy for 11 weeks with the National Academy and be selected. Very prestigious program. I'm still very active in the association. I was the past president of the New York State Eastern Canada chapter of the association. I do stuff with the Academy Associates now, helping out however I can. And what a great experience that was to be down there.
Tony, with the FBI Academy, I know sometimes, you know, everybody applies, but you need a little push from somebody. Was there anybody that helped you get selected for that, or was just that based on your application for that particular
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I had nobody for that. Of course, you had to get a recommendation from your CO. Like, that's standard. Everybody had to get a 49 or a written report saying that you know, that your commanding officer supports you going to the National Academy. So of course, Phil Banks wrote a 49 or a report saying that he supports me going there, but everybody had to have one of those. I think, honestly, looking back on it, I think what pushed me over the edge to get it the first time and be selected, if anybody was helping me out, I think it was, if you remember, back then, our Deputy Commissioner of Training was James Fife.
Mm-hmm.
James Fife, while I was doing my bachelor's degree in New York Institute of Technology, one of the assignments that I had to do was I was taking a statistical analysis class, and we had to write, one of our assignments was to write a full-blown research article and go out and do an experiment and write research. So my wife will take credit for this. She came up with the idea of, why don't you go and find out what motivates people to go into the profession of law enforcement? And I'm like, all right, I'll turn that into a research article. And I went out and I was able to go into the police academy class, and I wrote a sample survey. I gave it out to all the recruits with different things, and I turned it into a whole research article. And I gave it back to the professor in class at college, and he read it, and he pulled me aside one day, and he goes, I think you really have something here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, not only did you get an A on the paper, he goes, but I think you should pursue this and try and get it published. And I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, and I didn't get the gravity of it. But once I started realizing that he thought it was good enough to do that, I approached James Fife because he had a lot of research articles at the time. He was a very, very published author in criminal justice. And I went and made an appointment to visit with him just to pick his brain and say, do you think this is worth anything? And I was a sergeant at the time. And he looked at it, he glossed over it. He actually allowed me to come into his office, and I don't know how he had the time to sit with me, but he was gracious enough to hear me out. And he looked at it, and he looks up, he takes his glasses off, and he goes, I've done a lot of research. He goes, you really do have something here. He goes, I think you should pursue getting this published. It definitely has to be polished enough to get into a peer-reviewed journal, but I think you should do it. He goes, I'm going to connect you with one of my students from Temple University that does a lot of research, and you guys can co-author it and get it published. And that's what I ended up doing. Hey, Frank, I see you posting up there, buddy. One of my classmates from Lasal. Love you, bro. So we end up writing this research article about motivations for why people go into law enforcement, and it gets published in the Journal of Criminal Justice. And that was like just another feather in my cap, where I was like, wow, this is awesome. Flash forward to the whole thing with when I go before the board, to get into the FBI National Academy, James Fife was the deputy commissioner, was one of the people that was sitting on the board, and I think that definitely helped me to get into the National Academy for sure. I did. None of it was job sanctioned. I did all that on my own time. Like I was just a nerd with stuff like this. Like I just love police work and doing stuff and researching and doing all that, and it worked out well. So anyway, National Academy.
Vinny, by the way, Vinny is still bitter about it because you bumped him.
Oh, I know. Well, I tell Vinny all the time. I'm like, listen, only the best and the brightest get to go to Quantico. So sorry, Vin. You didn't make the cut, bro. You didn't make the cut. But yeah, so that was the 7-9, and then the captain's exam comes, and I take the captain's exam. I'm all over it, and I'm like, I'm going to do really well on this, and I get my study group back together. Me, Eddie Carrasco, a couple other people were studying hard. Rodney Harrison took part once in a while in our study group, and I got to tell you, this will kind of segue later on into what we do with Rising Star, but our study group was insane. Like almost on more than one occasion, it almost turned into fist fights where we were fighting with each other about, we would write our own questions and quiz each other. And it got like, we went in depth about what those words mean in the patrol guide and how to study and everything else. But I did really well on the captain's exam.
You like fighting questions, don't you?
I do. As a matter of fact, I will tell you on my lieutenant's exam, I actually got 6 questions wrong, but I protested one of the questions on the lieutenant's exam and got it overturned with the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. So that brought me back down to only getting 5 questions wrong. But it applied for everybody. Anybody that got that question wrong ended up getting it right because of the protest that I wrote. So I was
how'd that work out with the captain's test?
Not well at all, which will be my next little story of one of my trials and tribulations on the job. I do really well on the captain's exam. The list is published. I'm sitting number 13 on the captain's list, getting ready to be in the first group to get promoted. And one of the funny things is, like, people think, depending on how many questions you get wrong on a promotional exam, dictates how well your list number will be, and it's not always the case, because I got 3 wrong on my sergeant's exam and I was number 45. I got more questions wrong on the lieutenant's exam, but my list number was lower at 39. On my captain's exam, I got 15 questions wrong, so my raw score was 85. And when I got my raw score, I was like, oh my God, I'm dead in the water. Like, I thought that was a horrible. I'm like, I'm going to have I'm lucky if I even make the list at that point. But then when I started talking to everybody else, I realized that maybe I'm not so bad, because everybody else was like, it was a really, really difficult exam. And I ended up being list number 13 with that many questions wrong. But of course, me being the guy that I am, and never settling for just doing good enough, I have to be the best at everything that I do and be a perfectionist. I said, you know what? I'm going to protest some of these questions, because I think that they were wrong on some of these questions for sure. So I go to the protest period, the protest session after the exam is over, and there were 3 questions that I wanted to protest distinctly that I remember. And when you went to the protest session at DCAS after the exam was over, there's a couple of months later, you get to go back in. They tell you that you can bring your books that you use to study and all that other stuff, and you can protest. So when you get into the room with other test takers that are protesting with you, they hand you back your test, not your specific test, but they hand you a copy of the exam. And yes, Vinny, brain surgeon, I know. And you get to look at it, and you have 2 choices at that point. They give you a piece of carbon paper with a form that says you can write out your protest right here and turn the protest in before you leave the room, or you can go home and write a protest out and mail it in within 30 days back to DCAS, and protest your question that way. Which is what I always chose to do, because in the heat of the moment, first of all, my handwriting is atrocious, and secondly, I need time to formulate what I want to write. And I prefer to do it under my own time constraints and take my time doing it.
Yeah, you can better research it.
Yeah, so I knew I was going to do it from home. Here was the dilemma, though. The instructions from, and you have a proctor in the room to make sure that everything's going right, to collect the protest. You're not allowed to leave with the test material that they give you to look at, which I completely understood. I'm like, you can't leave with the test because other people later on may have to take makeup exams, and they don't want those questions being released by mistake or on purpose or whatever. So you can't leave with the test material. So the instructions for the protest distinctly said, when you write your protest, state the question, and then write your protest to elicit why the answer that you chose was as good or better than the proposed key answer that DCAS had. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right. And then now my wheels are turning, right? And I'm like, wait a minute, how am I supposed to do this? Like, if I want to go home and write the protest and send it back into them, but I have to state the question, which to me, state the question means verbatim, like whatever the question says, write it out, and then the answer choices, and then write your argument as to why what you chose is better. So I'm like, how am I supposed to do that if I can't leave with the material? And my thing was, I was indoctrinated way back when I first got into the police academy, that if you don't follow instructions and do exactly what you're told, like, you're out. Like, your paper's getting ripped up, or you're not going where you want to go. You did something wrong. Like, you're getting punished somehow. So I'm saying to myself, if I send the protest back in 30 days from now and I don't state the question, they're not even going to look at this protest. They're just going to toss it in the garbage.
Right.
So I call the proctor over and I'm like, ma'am, I go, when I write the protest from home, I'm going to choose to do it from home. Do I have to state the question? And she was like, she goes, you have to follow the directions that are there. I go, I understand that. I said, but the directions say that you have to state the question. So, like, is that what I have to do when I go home? And she goes, yes, you have to follow those directions. She wasn't catching what I was trying to say.
But they're also just hired to be babysitters, basically.
100%, Ron, 100%. So I had to make a decision, possibly not have my protest heard, or write the question out somewhere on my material, right? And then take it home so I could properly format the protest and then send it back into DCAS the way they want it, which is what I did. I took one of my patrol guide pages that I was able to bring in, and I wrote the question, 3 questions out, word for word, in my book, folded up the book, handed them back their test material, and then I left, went home, typed up my protest, and within 30 days, I send it in certified mail to DCAS, and I think everything is good. They're going to hear the protest, and everything's going to be great. Well, about 3 weeks later, I'm with friends. I'll never forget this. I'm driving. I'm off duty. I'm on vacation. I'm driving up to Saratoga for the races. I always went up in August and September to the racetrack to watch the races. And I get a phone call from a private number, and I'm in the car. And I pick up the phone, and it's an investigator from the Department of Investigation. And he goes, is this Lieutenant Raganella? And I'm like, yes. I go, who's this? And he goes, it's so-and-so investigator from Department of Investigations. And I'm like, hey, how you doing? What's going on? And he goes, would you be available to come in and speak to me? And I'm like, well, I can't right now. I said, I'm on vacation. I said, and I'm thinking it's about some collar I made or something. Like, I'm thinking it's something related to the job, obviously, right? So I said, well, I can't now. I'm on vacation, whatever. I said, but when I get back from vacation, I'm more than happy to come in. I said, what do you know what it's about? And he goes, well, yeah, it's about your captain's exam. And I'm like, my captain's exam? I'm like, what? I'm like, what's the problem? And he goes, well, I can't talk to you about it now until you come in. So just make an appointment when you're ready and come in, right? So now I'm like, I'm crapping my pants, and I'm like, my wheels. I'm like, what? I'm like, what went wrong? Like, I'm not even connecting the dots with anything. And I'm like, this is like weird. So I call the LBA and I tell them what's going on. And Tony Garvey and another guy that really stood up for me on this crazy story that I'm telling you that I went through. He's like, just go in and talk to them, see what they want. He goes, if it's anything serious, just call me and don't answer their questions or whatever. Just see what they want and then call me and let me know. So I'm like, all right. I go into DOI when I get back from vacation, make an appointment. I walk in. And the investigator comes out, and he comes out with like two other investigators. So there's three of them. I'm there by myself. I'm not represented by anybody because I don't even know what this is about yet. So he's like, come with me across the street. We gotta go into another room. And I'm like, hey guy, I'm like, not for nothing. I go, but can you tell me what this is about? He's like, yeah, as soon as we get across the street. So I'm like, we get across the street. We sit down at the table. As we sit down at the table, he pulls out a tape recorder and puts it on the table and presses record, right? So I go, whoa, time out. I go, first of all, I go, turn that off. I go, I'm not represented by anybody. And I go, and I don't even know what this is about. So he turns the thing off and he goes, all right. He goes, listen, he goes, I'll tell you what it's about. He goes, DCAS got in touch with us. They're concerned about how you were able to get verbatim questions and answers from the 2006 captain's exam and how you were able to get them and what you did with them. And I go, what? I go, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And I go, I tell him exactly what I did. I'm like, I said, leave the recorder off and I'll tell you exactly what happened. I go, so after I told him what he did, he goes, oh, he's like, okay. He's like, well, he's like, listen, I got to make a report. He goes, I have to interview you. I go, you're not interviewing me if I don't have representation. I said, you're not turning the recorder back on. I'm just telling you what happened, and that's the story. So I go out in the hallway, and I call Tony Garvey, and he's like, what happened? So I tell him the whole story about what happened at the protest session and everything else. He goes, Tony, he goes, you did nothing wrong. He's like, go back in there and just tell him the whole story. He's like, there's nothing wrong here. You did nothing wrong. I'm like, all right. So I go back in, I tell him the story. Next thing I know, I get a letter from DCAS that says, you've been disqualified from the captain's exam. Your name is being removed, and you are never eligible again under New York State civil service law to take a promotional exam with the NYPD. And I'm like, what the, you know what? And I'm like, now I'm like wigging out, right? I'm like, this is crazy. So
Wait, did they ever explain what the procedure should have been then? If they're saying that this was they never told you that.
They couldn't because they didn't have one. They couldn't. So that was why it was so infuriating and aggravating, because it would just, so anyway, what ends up happening is, thank God, Tony Garvey, may he rest in peace, he really went to bat for me and helped me out. The LBA helped me out. They realized that this was a complete injustice and everything that went on. I was on the phone at least twice a week with Tony Garvey for 3 years. This battle went on to get put back on the list. As this was happening, promotions are going on. I would have been in the first group to get promoted. Everybody's getting promoted over me while I'm sitting in limbo as a lieutenant while this is getting sorted out. I have a meeting with DCAS. I hire an attorney, a civil service attorney, great attorney. He comes in with me. We explain the whole situation to DCAS and their attorneys. And they're like, nope, sorry, you broke the rules. And so my attorney's like, you don't even have rules. Like, your rules are contradictory. It doesn't make sense. Like, we're going to file an Article 78 and we're going to sue. And they didn't care. They were just like, nope, we're setting an example. You can't do that and whatever. What ends up happening is DOI calls NYPD Internal Affairs to tell them that I'm under investigation. Now, Internal Affairs from NYPD is like, what? Wait, what? When did this happen? We didn't know anything about it. Now I get GO 15 from the job, and they want to know what happened. I told them the whole story.
Again, for the non-NYPD, a GO 15 is the old General Order 15, which is basically an official interrogation of a member of the service.
So I get officially interrogated, and I will say the name, Phil Ramanzi, who is known from IAB as just not like if he had a chance to do something horrible to his mother, he would do it, right? So this is who's interrogating me. He listens to my whole story, which makes complete sense when you hear it. And he says, okay, he goes, well, thanks for coming in. He goes, you'll be getting charges and specifications now. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I wanted to climb over the desk and punch him right in the head, right? So now I'm dealing with civil service. I'm dealing with charges and specs. I go to the trial room. I go through a whole trial. and the trial commissioner hears the whole story. I had the attorneys from the LBA, Jimmy Michella, great attorney, helped me out a lot. They all believed in me, backed me up 100%. I beat everything at the trial room. Everything was good. The trial commissioner is like, this is like, again, Phil Banks comes in and testifies on my behalf in the trial room for me, and everything was great. So department charges are done and over with. This was after what happened with DCAS. So Article 78, I lose the Article 78. The judge at court says, we're going to show deference to the city agency DCAS, and we're going to side with them, and you broke the rules, and you're done and over with. So I was like, it's like, now what do I do? I get on the phone with my attorney, and my attorney says, he says, Tony, he goes, listen, I'll never forget this. I was, because at the time that this was happening, I was a lieutenant in Brooklyn North Task Force. After I leave the 7-9 precinct as a lieutenant, I get into Brooklyn North Task Force again as a lieutenant now. And all this is happening as I'm a lieutenant. I'm standing on the steps at 179 Wilson Avenue on the phone with my attorney, and he goes, you lost at the appellate, you lost at the Article 78. He goes, the next step, if you want to do it, he goes, is to do an appeal to the second division at the appellate court. He goes, he goes, I've never, very rarely does that ever get overturned from a lower court. He goes, and I don't want to take more of your money. I already had over $10,000 of my own money in legal fees put into this to fight this. And he's like, I don't want to take more of your money. And I go, Jimmy, his name was Jim Brown, was the attorney. I go, Jimmy, let me ask you a question. And he goes, what's up? And I go, do you believe in me? He goes, I believe in you 100%. He goes, do you think my story's valid? Do you think that I deserve what I got? And he goes, not at all. He goes, anybody that hears this knows that that you're getting railroaded. I go, well, then here's my answer. Because he said, think about it overnight and let me know what you want to do. I said, I don't have to think about it overnight. I go, here's my answer. I said, file the appeal. We'll go into the appellate division. And that's what we ended up doing. And I ended up getting a unanimous decision in my favor from the appellate division. Yep. And then that article comes out in the chief newspaper. I end up winning that. And what ends up happening is it gets sent back now to the Civil Service Commission, has to hear the whole case, because that was the whole brunt of the argument, was that procedurally, after DCAS disqualified me, the Civil Service Commission for New York City is supposed to hear the case, and they declined to hear it. And that's why I went right to the Article 78. So the case gets remanded back to the Civil Service Commission, and I go before the Civil Service Commission, tell my entire story, and they were like, within days, they ordered my name to be put back on the captain's list. And that was a binding decision that the city had to abide by DCAS, had to abide by that. I get put back on the list just in time, because the captain's list that I was on was about to expire. And if I didn't get in, I got into the second to last group that was being made. If the decision didn't come down before that, I would have had to take the captain's exam all over again, and I would have got screwed that way. But I ended up getting into the second to last class before that, and got promoted to captain in 2010. So 4 years later, I would have been in the first group in 2006, and it took until 2010 to get the promotion to captain.
Well, did you get any back seniority or anything?
No. So what happens is the Civil Service Commission and the courts said the only jurisdiction that we have under our purview is to be able to mandate that you get put back on the list. You would have to do like a separate, through the job, you would have to do something to get seniority and back pay from 2006. So I was like, okay, I'll handle that separately, which I did. So once I got the promotion locked in and I get promoted in 2010, I do I file a grievance, and it goes all the way up through labor relations with the job, and it ends up on Commissioner Kelly's desk. And I actually heard through the grapevine that Kelly was very much in favor of wanting to give me the back pay and the seniority and everything, but he wasn't able to do it because somehow, and I don't know all the nuances of it, but somehow it's a contractual issue that they couldn't legally they weren't able to do that. So I lost out on the seniority and the back pay. But I was just happy to have it all. It was a nightmare. It really was a nightmare. I just had it all put to bed and got the promotion and moved on with my career, thankfully, and went from there.
So where'd you go as a captain?
So I get promoted to captain in July of 2010.
Did they at least give you your choice of command?
Well, I definitely got taken care of for sure. And partly thank you to you, Ron, for otherwise I wouldn't have got the command that I got because you turned it down first, apparently. What ends up happening is literally I'm coming off the stage from the promotion ceremony at 1PP. Just get promoted to captain. I come off the stage. The promotion ceremony's over. I'm looking for my family, my wife and my son, and my family's there. We're getting ready to get in the car to go back home and have a nice dinner to celebrate this monumentous occasion of another trial and tribulation that I went through on the job, right? And as I'm walking, navigating the crowd, Chief Charlie Camadana, who was at the time the commanding officer of a Special Operations Division, Chief of Special Operations, comes over to me, looks at my name tag, and he's like, Raganella. He's like, I heard about you. You're the task force guy. And I'm like, yeah, Chief, I'm the task force guy. He's like, you were in task force as a cop, a sergeant, and a lieutenant. I'm like, yep, that's me. He goes, I got an opening in the disorder control unit. Do you want to be the CO? And I'm like, Chief, I'm like, I don't want to sound presumptuous. I said, but it sounds like you're interviewing me. And he goes, it's not an interview. You want it or you don't want it. Like he was just like one of those stern, So I start laughing and I'm like, yeah, of course I want it. And he's like, okay. And he turns around and he leaves. And I'm like, that was bizarre. That was strange, right? I get in the car, I tell my family what happened or whatever. 20 minutes later, I get a phone call from the lieutenant from the disorder control unit, who was the acting CO at the time, Robbie Schwach. And he calls me up and he goes, hey, Tony, he goes, Camadana just went up to Espo and Kelly, and he put in for you to be the CO of the disorder control unit. And I'm like, Robbie, I go, that sounds great. I said, but I've already learned on this job until I see it come out in an order on paper. I'll hope for it, but until it actually happens, I'm not putting my eggs in that basket. But sure enough, we graduate the advanced leadership course for the captains, and the orders get cut, and I go straight. I was supposed to go back to initially Queens North as an XO in one of the commands in Queens North, and the orders get cut on that last day, and I'm going to fill in as the CO of the disorder control unit. So I did really. I got taken care of in the end. I think Kelly and Espo saw. Thank you for that, because I understand that the job was offered to you at one time, and you didn't like all the commuting and everything else that went on with it.
It was a bit of a commute up to the 4-4 for me.
Yep.
So I respectfully turned it down.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
So I'm getting a question on the side. When you were there when you became the commanding officer of the disorder control unit, how many people were working there?
Let me guess. That question came from Vinny Patty. So I'll let all the viewers know. So I'll tell you briefly what the
quick story, big guy. We're an hour and 23 minutes into it. So let's get everybody to like, share, and subscribe. Let's get this show out there. We're an hour and 24 minutes into it. You just got promoted to captain, big guy. So let's move it.
And get ready, because the best story is about to come. So the disorder control unit, definitely, as far as I'm concerned, the best gig on the job. When I first get to the disorder control unit, I got like 5 or 6 people working for me, right? That's it. That's the unit. We nicknamed it the small unit that did big things, for sure. Yes, Hassan, definitely a 4-hour episode. I could go on for days.
Wait, Tommy Graham was a 1-star chief with that, was he?
So
with 6 people.
Yeah.
Tommy Graham was the former CO.
Right.
So the disorder control unit got formed after the Crown Heights riots and all that. They realized that we needed to do better with crowd control and riots and everything else, and they created the disorder control project under the chief of department, which then turned into the disorder control unit. But it was a small group of people that formulated all these plans and everything else.
One star and 3 packs of cigarettes.
Oh, a lot of
Yeah,
sickness.
oh, it's
A lot of
terrible.
sickness. May he rest in peace. He passed
Yeah.
away a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Great guy. I learned a lot from him and Chief Anemone, who started the whole disorder control project. I learned a lot from them about crowd control and crowd management and everything else, in addition to what I did with the task forces. But so yes, definitely a small unit. When I ended up leaving the disorder control unit at the end, we went from, we had 5 or 6 people. We ended up leaving after the SRG strategic response group was formed. We ended up with 25 people in the disorder control unit. But we did all the training, the equipment.
Wait, hold on. You went from a squad to a platoon.
To a platoon as a commanding officer. Yes.
That's good. That's good.
Yes, no doubt. And little did I know, honestly, you know how I said at the beginning of the podcast, like everything happens for a reason, right? Little did I know that this was going to turn into a whole nother career for me after I left the job, which it did. I turned it into a whole nother career in the afterlife.
You might have time to get to that.
We're trying, Ron. But a great time I had at disorder control unit. I had such good people working for me. It was really, really good. We did the whole, you know, as you know, the Occupy Wall Street thing happened. All the Eric Garner protest, all that stuff. And Rob, you were the XO of Special Operations Division, so I had a great time working for you. I can't say so much about the other bosses that I had in my chain of command, but you were at least the one that was supportive of me and listened to the things that I wanted to do and changes that I wanted to make. And so I appreciate that and thank you for that. You helped me to keep some of my sanity in a very toxic environment. So I appreciate that.
Just for the viewers that aren't familiar with who Tommy Graham is, that's Chief Graham if you're looking at the screen on your left.
On the left.
And Chief Anemone on the right.
Yep. So yeah, so we did a lot of great things in the disorder control unit, a lot of training. During Occupy Wall Street, we trained over in excess of 12,000 members of the service, getting them ready. I did briefings for Commissioner Kelly, you know, when Occupy Wall Street happened, because right before Occupy Wall Street happened, they had major riots going on in London, England at that time. Yeah, that's one of the lessons I learned at Occupy Wall Street. That's me grabbing onto one of the guys. I'll save time and not tell the story, but that was a good story there that happened. But that's something that they call the unarrest, where you go to lock somebody up at the protest, and then all the protesters grab them and pull them back in, and it becomes a tug of war. But a lot of great work we did in the disorder control unit to teach all the cops and the task forces about crowd management and crowd control, and get them up to snuff and get some good equipment for the department. And we learned a lot from that. And then in 2015,
after you had a problem collaring that guy, did you?
Oh, yeah, that's me after I arrested 4 people, 4 protesters in wheelchairs. Espo showed up on the scene for that one. There was a captain that was there, and I show up. This was during one of the Occupy Wall Street. They had Park Row, not Park Row, Broadway. That was on Broadway, and they had Broadway completely shut down. And I showed up on the scene, and I'm like, all right, we got to arrest them. And the captain that was there from patrol was like, but they're handicapped. You can't arrest them. And I'm like, why? He goes, because they're handicapped. I'm like, so what? I'm like, they're protesters. They got to go. And it turned into a big debacle. And I'm like, well, listen, I made it no, because Espo showed up, and he's like, Tony, what are we doing with these guys? I'm like, I have to arrest them, Chief. And he's like, why? He goes, can't you just push them back up on the sidewalk and leave them there? And I'm like, no. I go, if we do that, what do you think is going to happen? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you're right. They're just going to go back out into the street as soon as we leave. I'm like, exactly. So we ended up arresting them, but it was a good. It was kind of comical at the time, because we had no way of transporting them at the time. Back then, we didn't have vans with lifts or anything, and I had to end up commandeering accessoride vans from social services to come to the scene to put them with the wheelchairs into the van and get them down to central booking. And so, of course, all the news cameras were there. It was a debacle, but it turned out well. We wrote policy on it to get it fixed afterwards, because we had no procedure on it. at the time. So, but good stuff we did at disorder control unit. And then flash to 2013, chief of department comes out with a report asking for input on how to reorganize the task forces and what should be done with the patrol borough task forces. And my staff and I wrote a report that Rob is very familiar with about how to centralize the task forces, because at that time the patrol borough task forces all reported to each individual borough commanding officer, and they were experiencing what we termed mission creep, where all the different task forces were kind of doing the same thing in mission, but in reality they were pulled in a lot of different directions and not doing the same thing. And so the idea was to centralize them under one single boss, but leave them in the boroughs. And we came up with a whole idea on how to do that in 2013. And at the time, it was supported by the chief of department. But right after that, in 2014, is when Commissioner Bratton came back in. And a lot of changes happened in the executive levels, and a lot of, I will call it nepotism and political favors happened. And as much as I appreciated Commissioner Bratton his first time around, I think he was definitely better for the department the first time he came in than he was the second time that he came in. I think a lot of accountability and decision-making was pushed way down too far his second time around, and people just started taking care of each other and their friends, and bad things result when that happens. And as a result of that, my idea and the DCU staff idea that we put together to centralize all the task forces kind of got put on the shelf temporarily. And then Bratton decided that we were going to do what was called, if you remember, the re-engineering project, where we were looking at the entire department as to what could be done to make things better for the department. And that's when we kind of, because my bosses at the time didn't really support the idea of centralizing the task forces, because I think they kind of felt like it was a power grab for me and my people to take over all the task forces, which it really wasn't. I just trying to do the right thing for the task forces. But in any event, the idea kind of got backdoored around the back end from my bosses and got put up through the re-engineering project right directly to Bratton's desk, and he liked the idea. And he filtered it down through the chain of command that he wanted to look into this more. And it was miraculous how all of a sudden now my bosses that didn't like it at the beginning were now all of a sudden very supportive of this idea, because it was coming from the other end. But anyway, we did all the work. Myself and my staff did all the work on putting all the project together, the budget, the training, all the stuff that needed to be done. And in typical NYPD fashion, none of us got the credit for it, and they brought in all new people to take over the SRG. I mean, we came up with the name, Strategic Response Group. We came up with the patch design. We came up with the budget, the training. Initially, the training for SRG was supposed to be 11 weeks long, and they shortened it down to 12 days and 13 days, I should say. And I was like, what are you guys are watering this down. It's going to have no credibility. There was initially supposed to be a physical. We were trying to duplicate, in a way, kind of like the credibility of what emergency service has for crowd control, and make it a credible unit that people really wanted to go into. And it just it got washed down to nothing. And it kind of fell apart from the vision that we initially had for it because of the people that took over and didn't really have the crowd control experience that we had growing up on the job. And it kind of fell by the wayside. So flash towards my retirement. That's a great photo. Actually, in my presentations that I do around the country now in my retirement, I show that picture all the time, because I think I'm one of the only executives in the NYPD that could take credit for collaring a polar bear. That was at Flood Wall Street. It was like a climate protest, and they were all dressed up in different stuff. They did a sit down on Broadway, and when I saw the polar bear dressed up there, I said, "That's going to be the first one to get collared. I want that one." And we had fun. Kind of had fun doing that because we. Were you
also trying to revamp? I know you said you talked about the patch, but just for safety purposes, were you trying to get any kind of better equipment for the members and everything else, like any kind of armor equipment or anything like that? 'Cause I know you like a lot. You like armor.
Oh, here we go. Here. Well, I'm looking at this picture right now, and I didn't even realize that's Vinny Patty. Vinny Patty put his 2 fingers through the eye holes. I never even noticed that until I'm looking at that picture right now. That was great. That was up at West Point. We had a lot of fun at West Point during Police Management Institute. That was a great time.
You felt bad. You pulled his head off, but you kissed and made up.
Oh, yeah, we took turns making out with the suit of armor for sure.
All right, go ahead.
Good time. Good time.
Let's keep going.
Yes. So anyway, I'll tell you this real quick. I got sent on a research project by the Department of Justice as the NYPD's crowd control expert to go over to Europe in 2017 to study how London Metropolitan Police Department and how the German police department does their crowd control and protest work over there. We came back for the Department of Justice. We wrote, myself and 4 other subject matter experts from around the country from different agencies. We went on this trip for 2 weeks. We came back and wrote a really good 80-page report. And nobody from the NYPD even wanted to read it. Like, it just, we learned a lot of what goes on over in Europe and what we need to do in America to make things better for protest response and control. So I wanted to start acquiring all this personal protective equipment because we kind of knew that fire as a weapon was coming to us as police agencies with Molotov cocktails, because we were seeing that happening in Europe. And I wanted to get all this equipment and all this good stuff, and nobody was listening to me. They just, that's the crowd control kook, the kooky guy that just wants to get all this stuff and spend money and whatever. So it was what it was. It became towards the end of my retirement, it became a very toxic environment where my bosses were just for whatever reason they wanted to put their own people in places that they didn't belong in. And myself and a couple of other really good executives from the whole SRG umbrella got pushed out and sent away to greener pastures. And that's when I kind of realized that it was getting close to my retirement.
Well, before that, you were a captain at the time, so you were promoted.
Yes. So 2013, I get promoted to deputy inspector. Right, I was the Christmas promotion. I was actually Commissioner Kelly's last promotion before he retired in 2013. It was December of 2013. I get promoted. It's my wife, my son, with Commissioner Kelly. And believe it or not, I had a really, really good relationship with any interactions I had with Commissioner Kelly. As much as everybody says he was a micromanager and everything else, I think he was really one of the job's best commissioners. I had really good experience with him. In fact, I met him a couple of times after he retired and I retired, and he remembered me, and we had really good conversations, and he was very supportive of a lot of stuff that we were trying to do.
Yeah, listen, under Commissioner Kelly, listen, I'm one of those people that'll say that I think he was a micromanager, but I think that the department was a much better department run under him. I think it was a much more professional department.
For sure.
The nonsense that goes on and has gone on would never go on under his administration. I mean, listen, everybody has things that happen, but to the extent that we see them today, I don't think that would be that would ever have happened under him.
I agree.
Yeah, I would second that, Ron, with you, because what it is, although he was a micromanager, you knew that he was a micromanager. So
Yep.
there was nothing hidden with his management style. So you knew what you were dealing with, and you understood it, and what he said and what he wanted, you did, because you respected that. Now it's like you don't even know what you're getting, and what they want you to do. It varies from day to day.
And nobody got promoted without his wink and a nod.
Exactly.
At any level.
Exactly. Yep. No doubt. Yeah. So
Tony, I can attest to the fact that you definitely did come up with that idea of the consolidation of task forces and the new idea. And I can attest to the fact that I'm going to say upper management, because I'm not going to name anybody in particular, didn't like that, and I think it was more of a personal vendetta against you. I will, definitely agree with you 100%. And what's really sad is that, and this happens in the NYPD a lot, somebody comes up with a really good idea and they don't get the credit for it. And other people get the promotions, other people get the notoriety, and they just leave somebody else behind. And unfortunately, you deserved it. You were one of the persons I know for a fact that was left behind and shouldn't have been, because it was your idea. It was your insight, your team that you built together, and it should have been your reward. And unfortunately, you weren't the recipient of that. So I myself think you definitely should have been promoted. You should have been the same as Graham. I mean, it's a one-star spot. Ron and I talk about that all the time. If you're in a spot where somebody else was a chief or whatever, then you take that spot. I mean, it's kind of assumed you're going to get that same reward. You're taking the same responsibilities on. And unfortunately, both of you didn't took spots that you should have been promoted in. So I totally agree with you, and I feel bad for you. So.
No, you know what, Rob, I really appreciate you saying that. I mean, honestly, in my heart, that means a lot to me, because I always respected you as a boss, and you too, Ron. Like, we all got along with each other. Listen, my staff did a really great job for me, and we joke around about how it was such a small unit, but we did big things. I will honestly tell you that the small unit that I had, people don't realize until you work there the enormous responsibility that the disorder control unit really had on the job for crowd control and training, and responsibility that we had with such small few amount of people. But listen, I could have walked away from that situation and been really bitter. I know, like my staff, like they were very upset about how everything went down, because we didn't get the credit that we deserve for coming up with everything. But we made it through, and I'll tell you, again, I had the foresight. I don't know how, but in 2015, 4 years before I even retired off the job, I had already started my consulting business on the outside. I got off-duty employment. I started going around the country and training and consulting on crowd control issues in 2015, when I was still the CEO of the disorder control unit. And I realized, like, it was just on a whim too, because what happened was, I get a phone call from somebody that says, "Hey, North Carolina, the North Carolina Chiefs of Police Association is looking for somebody to come down and speak to them about protest and crowd control. Would you be willing to come down, like, with a PowerPoint and just talk to them for a couple of hours?" And I did it. And I did it obviously on off-duty time. It wasn't job sanctioned, but I put in off-duty employment. I went down there and did it. And it was so well received afterwards that I said to myself, "Hey, you know what? Maybe I can make a go of this, and like maybe there's something to this." And then when we saw what happened in, with Ferguson and Eric Garner, and then Freddie Gray in Baltimore, and then 2020, and like it morphed into a full-time consulting and training business for me, where I just go around and teach this stuff now to other agencies on how to do it and what. So, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, in hindsight, everything happens for a reason. And, maybe if those things didn't happen, maybe I'd still be on the job, but I wouldn't have what I have today. And everything works for a reason. So I'm not bitter about anything, because it all worked out, and it's all good stuff. And
I'm just keeping this photo up because I want everybody to see the real brains of the disorder control unit right
there. That's Jose Vega, my right hand man, better known as my consigliere. Interesting enough, that particular photo is a very famous photo, because that was at the New Year's Eve briefing, and I'm not going to remember what year it was. If Jose is on watching this, he'll know what year it was. But
2014.
2014. Okay, so that was the exact moment. They had a photographer in the room taking pictures, and you can see Jimmy O'Neill in the background and everybody else. We had just got done doing the briefing for New Year's Eve. It was about 10 o'clock at night.
He doesn't have his megaphone.
Yeah. Yep. It was about 10 o'clock at night. The meeting had just ended, and I just got done briefing everybody in the room about how all the task forces are prepared. We're in the spots that we're supposed to be, because we were expecting some leftover Occupy Wall Street activity to come in and try and crash the New Year's Eve celebration. I said, everybody's where they're supposed to be. We're all good. The moment the meeting ends, Jose, at that exact moment that that picture was taken, Jose is leaning into me to tell me that he just got a phone call that our plan just completely went to shit and nobody is where they're supposed to be. And I just lied to everybody in the meeting. And the look on my face, I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So I had to run out of the room and we had to go back and scramble and get everybody back to where they were supposed to be. There was a miscommunication and everything, but it was all good. It's all good. Jose is a good man. I work with Jose a lot now. He's retired. He works a lot with me and does his own training and consulting. We do a lot of work together. So kudos to everybody that was there.
It was all good, right? All good.
Where did you get that picture from?
I can't give up my sources.
Oh, I'm going to give you that. That was right after, I think that was my first day back at work after getting promoted to deputy inspector. Before I tell you the real story that we're all here for, which will come up next, I'll tell you a very quick, funny story about my phone call for promotion. So 2013, I'm a captain. And you guys remember what happens with promotions. Promotions usually happen on a Friday, and the phone calls go out Wednesday night to everybody that in the executive level, executive ranks that's going to get promoted. And so that Wednesday before Christmas, with the Christmas promotions, there was some rumors that maybe Raganella might get promoted. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I heard that a million times before, whatever. I'm sitting in my office on that Wednesday night, getting ready to go home. It's like 6 o'clock at night. And I hear the phone out in the office, the main office of the disorder control unit ring. And I hear one of my cops saying, oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Hold on 1 minute. Hold on 1 minute. And he comes running into my office and he goes, Captain, he goes, the PC's office is on the phone. They want to talk to you. And I'm like, what? I'm like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. I go, holy shit, maybe this may be the promotion phone call. I'm like, switch him into my office, right? So he goes, okay. He goes back outside and I'm sitting by the phone and I'm waiting for it to ring and it's not ringing, right? I'm like, what the hell is going on? So I run outside and I'm like, and the cop his name was John, right? And I go, and it was only me and him in the office. And I go, John, I go, what happened? Did you switch the call in? He goes, yeah, didn't you get it? And I'm like, no. He goes, oh shit, it must have got disconnected. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? So now I'm sitting there and I'm like, what do I do now? Like, I can't call the PC's office and say, hey, I think you might have called me to tell me I'm getting promoted. So I had to sit there and wait. And about 20 minutes later, the phone rings again. And I'm like, and I told John, I'm like, if that phone rings again, let me come out and get it. Don't try to transfer it. And I went out and got it. And it was Commissioner Wench, who was the chief of staff at the time. And he's like, Tony. I'm like, yeah. He's like, he goes, I got great news for you. I'm like, oh. I'm like, what's up? He's like, yeah, Commissioner Kelly's going to promote you this Friday. I'm like, awesome. He goes, you're going to be one of the last promotions he does before you leave. So it was good timing. Great story. It was all good. So to the real story now before we wrap this up.
No, we're not wrapping up yet. We got a little time.
All right. Well, before
we keep talking about. Wait, we keep talking about. I keep throwing up pictures from PMI and the times that we had. Rob and I are both Police Management Institute, PMI. We keep talking about PMI. It's Police Management Institute through Columbia. We went up at the Thayer at West Point. Rob, were you at the Thayer also? Yeah. So we spoke about PMI in our prior podcasts and everything else. So did you go as a captain or a DI?
I was there as a captain.
You were there as a captain. So let's talk briefly about how that came up and a little bit about PMI, because we talk about your education and everything else. We're going to get into the other story, don't worry, but just because it's interesting and and jokingly I keep throwing pictures up and everything else from our time together, because we were classmates in that PMI group 24.
Well, I'll tell you the brief story of how I ended up at PMI. And I don't know if Rob remembers this or not, or if he's willing to attest to this or not, if he did know about it. So what ends up happening is, as I said, I worked for Phil Banks in a couple of different commands, and I was, on the job when we were both on the job together. I was relatively close with him, in passing when we talked to each other or whatever. But what ends up happening is I see him out at an event one night, and he says to me, Tony, would you be interested in going to PMI? And I'm like, Chief, of course I'd be interested in going to PMI, definitely. He's like, okay, and he just left it at that. That was it. Next thing I know, I get a phone call to come down to SOD, down to Floyd Bennett Field. My office was up in the Bronx. And I get down there, and my chief at the time, the chief of SOD was, I'll say the name, Harry Whedon, who, for whatever reason, like I'm not even going to go into it, but he didn't see eye to eye with me. I had no problem with him. He didn't see eye to eye with me, whatever. All of a sudden, and it was pretty much known that I was like, the redheaded stepchild of SOD, along with a couple of other bosses for whatever reason. Anyway, what ends up happening is he calls me into his office, and he goes, he says, Tony, would you be interested in going to PMI? And I'm like, of course, Chief, I would love to go to PMI. And he's making it seem as if he's the one that's going to send me there, right? I don't know if he knew that like weeks earlier I had a conversation with Phil Banks, but what I found out later on through the grapevine was that Phil Banks told Harry Whedon, I'm sending Raganella to PMI, so just let him know that he's going to be going to PMI. And I think Harry Whedon kind of blew a gasket on that and didn't want that to happen, but right. It happened. So
just the selection process, only 30 applications go out a year, and only 15 people are selected. So it's actually they tell you, it's prestigious to even get an application, to be selected for an application, which wasn't consolation to me the first year I got it and got denied. I fill out the application, I do my essay, the whole 9 yards, and I didn't get it the first time. I got it the second time around. So, but yeah, it's a pretty deep selection. And then, certain deputy commissioners and everything else, they get their little picks. And then once they're done with their little picks, like you were Banks's little pick, then the rest of us slugs, have to fight it out with the committee to make the class. So, but
you want to hear something? You want to hear? Listen to this.
Not really.
I learned this later. I learned this later on, years later. I didn't even realize that I did this. But this is me patting myself on my back. I don't know where this came from or how I did this. But do you remember when you did the application for PMI? You had to write an essay about what you would change in the department, or like what needs to be done in the department. Do you know? Years later, I look back on that essay when I was going through some papers. Do you know what I wrote my essay on? I wrote my essay on bringing into the department predictive policing and artificial intelligence before that was even thought about by anybody.
I did.
And now here we are years later, and like that's like the flavor of the day now, right? So,
I did mine on going paperless on communications, electronic communications, the waste of the paper that we used to do on communications, and how many times those things were photocopied and sent over, and each endorsement, it wound up. I did a copy. I used an example of one endorsement wound up being 146 pages for one memo. Once it goes up and down the chains, out to the commands, back to the command, it was just crazy. That's what I did mine on. But
I did. You know what I did mine on?
What'd you do?
It didn't really matter because Pulaski was my hook, so I was going in no matter what.
So you were the pick. You were the pick. Pulaski picked you. Banks picked you, and I was the slug trying to make it through. I took 2 times around before I got selected.
I could have put the toilet paper on the other way so that it hangs down and then forward. Yep.
There you go. It's a beautiful thing. But very intelligent people in our class, right? We're not going to name names on certain things, but I just have a question. As difficult as the selection process is, and certain people in our class were lawyers, right? We had lawyers in the class. We had uniform members that were lawyers also, and we used to do during the classes. We do some exercises and things like that. So Do you remember this one?
Oh God.
You know, you had to sketch an item from the message, right? And work quickly. Just whatever comes to your mind, put it down. We roll out the plan in 3 stages. And you got a tree on a wheel. Roll it out in 3 stages. We're going to leave it at that.
Let's just clarify, Ron, that wasn't my sketch or your sketch.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It was not. It was not. It was a friend of ours in the class, and it was interesting. But just I just shortened it now when we were doing it. But I did have some pictures that were sent to me from our time at PMI. I've been throwing up some joke pictures, but there's just a few other pictures. I actually just I removed a few because we're running late. No, it's not. So I'm just gonna run. I'm gonna say though that our mics are gonna be on, so be careful when I put this up. So don't, our mics are on. I took music off of it, and but I do want the audience to turn the volume up because there are a couple of audio bites in there.
Not be what I think it is.
I don't know what you might think it is.
You're
but
dead.
I'm going to bring it up. This is our PMI group, PMI 24. And it's just hanging out in the lounge. Little cocktail. Study groups. Beautiful view up at the Thea. Mm-hmm. Deep in thought. Things we had to do during class.
It's my trained fly. He does tricks. Watch, he's gonna do a backflip. Oh, see? Oh.
And that's when we went to Gracie Mansion. There's our boy. So it's just a little trip down memory lane a little bit. But no, seriously, before we move on to I know there's some people in the audience that are just dying to hear one of the final duties that you had in the NYPD and get into that a little bit. But also, when we talked about you were part of SOD and you were part of disorder control and things like that. Did you ever work with Rob or any of the guys over in SOD and discuss anything about barricaded situations?
Are you going to bring up some type of a picture that's leading? Are you leading into?
No, I'm asking you a question.
Of course, we always talked about stuff like that for sure. Because I would at times I would be the SOD duty captain or whatever.
Right.
So I was always picking everybody's brains about. I was a crowd control guy, so going out and being the SOD duty captain, I always wanted to learn about barricade jobs and what's the right thing to do and stuff.
And we just listen. And up at PMI. We talk about a lot of job-related instances. We talk about a lot of training and everything else. And I just remember.
Please don't move. Help! Help!
Somebody once got barricaded in their room.
Oh, I'll never forget that. That was great. We had so much fun up there. We had more fun than we were supposed to, honestly.
Oh, absolutely.
That was awesome. What an awesome time we had up there together.
Great people in our group. Great staff up there. Even Tom Ferentz, Tiny Shoe Tom, God rest his soul also. He passed away a few years ago. We had a really good time up there. I've thrown up these things, but we had our serious moments too, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was a way for us to actually be away from the job and decompress a little bit. So just showing the audience a little bit of a lighter side that executives, we are human, and we do that. So now let's get into before we get into what you're doing now, currently, off the job. You know, we've all had our moments of notoriety in the news media. So why don't we get into one of your most notorious moments as an executive in the NYPD?
Do you want to show something first, or do you want me to tell the story and then show what you got to show?
Well, I mean, you know, it's just there's incidents that might have happened where someone got a private tour inside of headquarters.
Which is not true.
Well, all right. Well, listen, we like to be fact-based here, and you know, we don't want to talk about rumors. You know, I'm just going what was in the paper and also what was on the news.
Today vowing to find out how a German porn star was allowed to tour sensitive parts of the police department's headquarters. Anita Ukatis posted photos on Instagram of her private tour of one police plaza. She was reportedly allowed to film inside the clean.
But wait a second. Wait a second. Wait. I'm confused. You're telling me it wasn't true. Wait a second. Wait a second.
That guy looks familiar.
I have unrefutable evidence here, Rob. Rob, we got to go to the boss. Rob's the chief. You're the duty chief. You're getting called in on this, Rob. Is this unrefutable evidence?
I'd have to really interview the victim there. I'd have to, and then I would interview Tony.
All right, let's get back to it. All right.
That's in real-time crime center and even outside Commissioner O'Neill's office. The mayor was asked about it today, and he was not happy.
I have only heard the beginning of this, and I don't like what I hear. I don't understand how on earth this could have happened. I know it's being investigated.
We are looking into it, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
The Post says the tour was arranged by a deputy inspector at a time.
What?
The tour was arranged by a deputy inspector at a time when he...
What rank were you, Tony?
Deputy inspector.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say. All right.
Did you...
knew O'Neill would not be in the building.
Did you notice what Tucker said? We're going to get to the bottom of it. Like everything surrounding this was so salacious, and it was insane. You couldn't make this story up if you took a pen to paper and tried to write the funniest and most outrageous script. You wouldn't have come up with this story. And it's typical Tony Raganella style. Like, it only happens to me. But so I'll tell you, this is how I went out in retirement, right? This is my story.
Well, listen.
So what ends up happening, I'm set to retire November 30th of 2019. So 6 weeks before I'm set to retire, 6 weeks away from retirement, I get a phone call from an out-of-state law enforcement colleague who's retired. He's a business person, a motivational speaker. He does all kinds of stuff all over the world, actually. And he calls me up and tells me, hey, on Columbus Day weekend, obviously in October, 6 weeks before I'm set to retire, he goes, I'm going to be in New York City visiting, and I'm going to have one of my, now he was retired at the time. He was a retired chief from an agency down south. And yeah, that's pretty accurate. Yeah, QC Beast, that's definitely accurate. I would have got promotions out of it had it happened recently, for sure. That's a good one. I like it. Thank you. So I get a phone call. He's a retired chief from down south, and he tells me one of the guys from my agency is coming up to New York City with me. He's active still on the job, and we would, is there any chance that you could get us into 1PP just to walk around and take a tour? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I said, no problem. Let me know, when you get up here, just give me a phone call and let me know when you want to go in, and I'll arrange everything for you, and I'll take care of it. A couple of days later, he calls me back and he goes, hey, Tony, he goes, I don't want to impose. If it's a no-go, just let me know. But when I was over in Germany, one of my colleagues that I did work for, she's like a bigwig over in Berlin. She owns a realty company. Her husband's very wealthy. They own all kinds of buildings and developments and everything. And I did work for her. She's going to be in New York City at the same time that we are. And she's a very, very big fan of law enforcement. She goes around and visits law enforcement agencies. She loves cops or whatever. Would there be any objection to bringing her along on the tour? And I'm like, not at all. I said, as a matter of fact, I'll get hats and patches and some coins for her or whatever. I said, bring her along. I said, just, as long as you're vouching for her, she's good. He's like, no, she's business people. It's all good. There's nothing to worry about. It's all good. I'm like, okay. I said, I'm not taking you anywhere that you're not supposed to be anywhere. I said, people do tours of 1PP all the time anyway. It's not a big deal. But just bring her and we'll do it, right? So, okay. So we start coordinating. When are we going to do this? When are we going to meet up and do the tour? So I say to my friend, my colleague, I said, hey, if there's any chance that you could come during the week, I know you said you're going to be here Columbus Day weekend, but if you could come on like a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, something like that, 1PP will be filled with people and you'll get more out of it because you'll be able to see more offices that'll be open. I could take you into more places and you could talk to people. There'll be a lot of people there. If you come on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's going to be like a ghost town. There's really not going to be much to see or do, but I could still make it happen. So he goes, let me call you right back. He calls me back. He goes, unfortunately, he goes, Sunday, which was the day before Columbus Day. He goes, Sunday's the only day that we're going to be able to do it where everybody doesn't have anything going on. So I'm like, all right, don't worry about it. We'll make it work. So I plan to meet them. The first stop that we go to is going to be LMSI, which is the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. For those viewers that are not familiar with it, that's one counterterrorism building where all the cameras are that film everything that's going on around Manhattan, and hundreds of cameras all filter into that area, whatever. And then from there, I plan to take them down to Battery Park to see the Statue of Liberty, the World Trade Center Memorial, and then we were going to come back to 1PP and tour through 1PP. So that Sunday morning, I wake up, I'm getting dressed. Now, Sunday was my day off. I don't normally work, so I chart changed myself to work on Sunday because I was going to do it. I did it on job time. I get dressed up. I put a suit and tie on, and I'm walking downstairs in my house. And my wife is there, and she says, "Oh," she goes, "It's Sunday. What are you doing?" And I said, she goes, I thought you weren't working today. And I said, no. I said, I got to go into the city. I have to meet so and so. I'm going to leave names out of it. I have to meet so and so, and I'm giving them a tour. And my wife was like, "Oh, well, who else is going to be there?" I said, "One of his colleagues that he used to work with in his agency, and some businesswoman from Germany that he wants to make a good impression on or whatever, wants to do more business with her. And she's a big fan of law enforcement, so she wants to come in and see 1PP. So she's like, all right, have a good time. I won't expect you for dinner or whatever. I'll talk to you." So I go into 1PP, I drive in, and I meet them at the Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. And when I walk into the lobby, I lay eyes on this woman, and something just didn't sit right with me, right? I'm like sitting there and I'm saying this woman is like, she doesn't look like a businesswoman, right? And I'm like, I go over, I introduce myself, my friends are there, the colleagues are there, we're all talking, and she hands me her business card. She spoke decent English, she had German accent, whatever. She hands me her business card, and I'm like, okay, let's go up in the elevator and go up to Lower Manhattan Security Initiative and see what's up there. I purposely get to the back of the elevator, and I have them standing in front of me, and I pull out her business card that she just gave me, and no, she actually didn't go to the 13th floor, Nighthawk, and see the lair. She didn't get up to where a lot of action took place. Unfortunately, she didn't go up there. So I Google on my phone her name that's on the business card, and sure enough, it comes back that she's a land developer in Berlin. She owns all these buildings with her husband, and so I'm like, all right, she's legit. This is a businesswoman, but her appearance and everything was still just rubbing me the wrong way. We go up to Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. Now,
Physically or literally?
what's that?
Physically or
Physically.
rubbing you the wrong way?
No, not literally.
Oh.
Figuratively. Don't, Ron, please don't make this worse than it already is. So the places that I was visiting, I had already called these places and let them know that I was coming in. I had some guests. This was already prearranged with all the units that we went to go see. So we go up to Lower Manhattan Security Initiative. We sightsee, we do everything. We leave, we go to Battery Park, we go to World Trade Center Memorial, and then we head over to 1PP. I give her hats, coins, patches, whatever. We go into 1PP. I prearranged to go into Real-Time Crime Center, the Operations Center. I take her into the press briefing room. She takes pictures behind the podium, take her into the auditorium, all that good stuff, right? So the tour is over. I say goodbye to everybody. I go back home, and I get home, and my wife is standing there, and she's like, oh, she goes, I wasn't expecting you home for dinner. I didn't think yeah. So I get back in from dinner. She goes, I wasn't expecting you home from dinner. Did you like cut everything short? And I'm like, yeah, they had stuff to do. I was just giving them the tour, and that was it. So my wife says to me, oh, so how was the business lady? Like, you know, was she nice or whatever? And jokingly, I said to my wife, yeah, she was a nice lady. She spoke a little bit of English. I said, but she kind of like, because of like the work that she had done with the Botox and the surgery and everything, she kind of reminded me like of an old star kind of woman or something. And my wife started laughing like, oh, that's funny, whatever. We thought it was funny. Little did I know, right? So everything's good now. I'm 5 weeks out from retirement. A whole week goes by. I'm going into work. And now at this time, as you guys remember, we had you had a personal cell phone, you had a work cell phone, whatever. I get in the shower at home. I'm getting ready to go to work, and everybody knew that I was 5 weeks away from retirement. So nobody was calling me. Nobody was bothering me. I was on the downslide. It was all good, right? I come out of the shower and I get dressed and I go to pick up my phones, and I have a million messages on my phones, like text messages, phone calls, voicemails. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell is going on? Like something's not right. One of the phone calls, one of the voicemails was, I'm not going to mention the name, but it was an executive in public information, the Deputy Commissioner of Public Information. And the voicemail went like this: Tony, call me immediately from a private number. Do not use your job phone. So I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, this can't be good. So I get my private phone. I call him on his private phone, and the conversation goes like this: Tony, yeah, what's up? Did you give a tour at 1PP last week? And I'm like, yeah, why? He goes, to a porn star? And I go, what? And he goes, to a porn star. So I think he's joking around. And I'm like, yeah. I go, I guess she was a porn star. I don't know. She kind of looked like one. And he goes, no, I'm being serious. She was a porn star. And I go, what are you talking about? And he goes, the New York Post is running a story this afternoon about the porn star that you gave a private tour to. And I'm like, wait, what? And he goes, what name did she tell you she was? And I read the name off the business card, and he goes, yeah, that's not her porn star name. He goes, try this name. So I Google the other name, and I'm looking at these videos, and I'm like, holy sh! I'm like, what? So he goes, that's who she used to be. She was a porn star in Germany, like a famous porn star in Germany. Like, how did you end up with her going into 1PP or whatever? And I'm like, and I tell him the whole story, and he's like, all right. He goes, just tell me the whole story, because I got to get out in front of this with the newspapers and everything else. Like, we got to figure out, we got to do damage control or whatever, because they're making a big deal out of this. And I'm like, really? I go, a big deal? I go, people get tours in 1PP far worse than retired film actresses? Like, come on. He's like, I know, but they want to run with this story. I'm like, all right, do what you got to do, right? I go downstairs. I'm getting ready to go to work, and now I have to tell my wife what happened, right? So I tell my wife, and obviously now her wheels are turning, right? She's like, wait, when you came home, you said she looked like a porn star. Now she really was a porn star? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, so my wife says, and you didn't know this? And I'm like, I swear to God, I had no idea. And she goes, and your friend who, you know, he didn't know either? And I go, I don't know. I go, I have to call him now and find out if he knew this, because if he did, I'm going to be really pissed about this. Like, it would have been nice to know this. Not that it's a big deal, but it's a big deal now because the media wants to run with it. So I leave the house. I get on the phone and I call my friend right away. And I call him up and I go, hey, remember that woman that you brought with you last week? And he goes, yeah. He goes, I wanted to call you and thank you. He goes, she really loved the tour. Like, it was great. She thank you for the hats and the patches and everything. She really had a great time. It was really good. Thank you for doing that for us. And I go, hey, let me ask you a question. I go, did you know that she was a porn star in Germany? And there was silence on the other end of the phone, right? And he goes, finally, he goes, Tony, he goes, you got a really good sense of humor and we joke around a lot. He goes, but you sound like you're serious right now. And I go, I am. She's a porn star in Germany, retired. And he goes, what? And I go, you didn't notice. And he goes, do you think I would have fucking done that if I didn't know that? I would have, of course I would have told you that. He goes, you're kidding me right now, right? And I'm like, no. So I believe that he definitely didn't know. He had no idea. Anyway, what ends up happening is after that, New York Post runs the story all over the front page, 5 days straight on the front page of the newspaper. The mayor gets involved, the police commissioner, everybody's getting involved in this to figure out how a porn star got a private tour. Meanwhile, it wasn't a private tour. How it happened on a Sunday, on a day when the police commissioner wasn't going to be in there. Like, they just blew it so much out of proportion that it was ridiculous. What ends up happening is I get a phone call from my wife that says, there's people outside the house. And I'm like, who's outside the house? And she's like, news cameras are outside the house. And I'm like, outside our house? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. I'm like, pull the blinds down. Don't go outside. I call my son who's at school. And because now the media is trying to call not only me to get my side of the story, they're calling my wife's cell phone number. They're trying to call my family members to find out, like, to get whatever tidbits they can to run these 5 stories consecutively on the front page of the newspaper. So now I have to call my son and I tell him, listen, are you at school? He's like, yeah. I'm like, and he's a sophomore at this time in high school. And I'm like, do not answer your phone unless you see that it's me or mommy. Do not answer phone calls from anybody. And he's like, why? What's going on? I'm like, just don't answer your phone. I'll explain later when we get home. Don't answer your call. Ends up, I have to send my son, because I don't want him on the news, because they're camped outside my house now, trying to get more of a story out of this. I have to send him to a friend's house to sleep over so that he doesn't come home in the middle of all of this shit that's going on, right? The news cameras are out there. They're running up to me and I'm just like ignoring them, getting in my car, going to do what I got to do. I don't say anything to them or whatever. And it turned into a huge debacle. They were outside my house for like 3 days, trying to do all this story or whatever. Next thing I know now, I'm like, all right, so now I'm like 4 weeks away from retirement. And now Internal Affairs calls me, right? So now IAB is doing an investigation on this, right? So I'm like, this is so ridiculous. It's unbelievable, right? I walk into work after the first story comes out. I walk into work and I'm getting high fives from everybody. All the guys are like, you're the man. I can't believe it. That was excellent. That's all. I'm like, no, this is not excellent. This is not funny. This is not good. It's not good. And they're like, no, this is cool. This is really cool. What a way to retire. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. It's not good. It's not good, whatever. I'm like, my family life is in an upheaval right now with what's going on at home. I'm not even worried about work.
What was the outcome? What was the outcome? We got to get to the end of this. What was the outcome?
The outcome was I go for the GO-15 for the interrogation with Internal Affairs, and they're hysterical laughing. They're just like, I go into the room and they're like, listen, tours are done all the time. Nobody's trying to harpoon anybody. We totally get what happened. Just put on the record what happened so we can be done with this. And that's exactly what happened. They did nothing. There was no violation of policy or procedure. Nothing ended up happening with it. It was nonsense. But they, Rodney Harrison at the time was, I don't know if he was chief of patrol or chief of department at the time. But he had to get up in front of the news cameras at 1PP and say, this is being dealt with. It's nothing. It's not what you think it is. Whatever. It just turned into a big debacle. But
also, did that lead into a second side gig?
Yes. I'm officially known as the One Police Plaza 14th floor tour guide. Yes, because that was the funny part. I had my ID card. I had access to the 14th floor at One Police Plaza because of my meetings that I had to go into with police commissioners or whatever. So obviously, I didn't take her into and the whole time that we did the tour, the paper made it seem as if it was just me and her in the building by ourselves, which it wasn't. The guys were with me the whole time.
There's no other pictures of those. Them.
So I took her onto the 14th floor with the guys, and they were all taking pictures outside the crest of the police commissioner. She never went anywhere past the hallway, so it was nonsense. And here's the funny part: how this all came to light in the first place. Like, my question was like, how did the New York Post even find out about this? This is how crazy this is. When she went back to Germany, she maintained an Instagram account under her porn star name because she was helping like young German girls to like not get into the business that she was in. She's like, don't do this when you get older, like stay clean, whatever, it's not always the best, whatever. But adult films in Europe are a completely different culture than what we have here. They're not frowned upon like they are here. It's not that it's fully accepted, but it's not a bad thing like it is here. Like, oh my God, you're a film star, an adult film star. Anyway, she posts on her Instagram account the pictures from 1PP and the pictures of us, getting her hat and her patch and everything. She's like, I had such a great time at NYPD. They were so, very, gracious to give me a tour and everything else. The news media, and she put hashtags at the bottom of the post on Instagram, hashtag NYPD, hashtag 1PP, whatever. The news media catches those hashtags, and when they look at it, they're like, wait a minute, NYPD, 1PP, tour, film star, adult film star. They put the pieces together, and they're like, oh, this is a story, and they ran with it, and it was ridiculous. She ends up finding out what happened to me and all the news media that was going. This went worldwide, by the way. This was on every major news outlet around the world, on social media, on television, on AM and FM radio. It went viral, this story. She finds out what happens and writes to the news article, to the newspaper media and the police commissioner's office, and vouches for me and says, listen, I didn't mean to cause any harm by asking for a tour. Deputy Inspector Raganella had no knowledge of what I did in my past career. My other hosts that were with us on the tour had no idea what I did in the past. Like, stop, like, this is ridiculous that you would treat him this way and all of that stuff. So it ended up, that was just a crazy story. So now I'm at a point now where we're almost a half decade past what happened, and I can now at least a little bit joke around with my wife and say I retired with a bang. I went out with a bang. It doesn't go over that well all the time. But
yeah, that would not go over in this household. I'll tell you.
No, it's
Rob?
Still a little bit of a sore subject, but
no.
Crazy story, crazy. You couldn't make that up if you tried.
No, absolutely not. So all right, so your career's over now, not because of this, because you're planning on retiring, and you move on, and everybody talks about how this job is your life, and you live it, and it is true that a career in law enforcement is very cultural. It becomes a part of your fiber. But what you did was on this job, as you went along, you've touched on it, and people in the chat have touched on it too. You started a promotional school when you were a lieutenant, and then you started a consulting business. So let's talk about your promotional school, because we'll talk about, we still have the audience and anybody that's interested in any upcoming promotional exams that may be coming up. that they can't, buy their promotion and they have to study for it. I think we'll over all that joke. Okay. So, let's talk about your school, Rising Star Promotion.
Yeah, so Rising Star Promotion started, as you said, when as a lieutenant with my study group, and then when we studied for the captain's exam. After that was over, we in our study group we would write, as I said, questions and answers. We would make up multiple choice questions and answers to ask each other, and we would have like drop down fights and arguments about what the meaning in the patrol guide was and how to study and all that stuff. Myself and my partner Eddie Carrasco in the business, as a result of our study groups, and because we did so great on, Eddie was right up there on all the lists with me when we got promoted, and we looked at each other and we said, hey, thank you, Woon, I appreciate that. Number one in the business, no doubt. Oh yeah, Vinny, Eddie is the brains for sure, no doubt about it. So we looked at each other and said, hey,
Woon agrees.
Woon agrees, yeah. We decided like maybe we have the recipe for something here that we could turn this into a business, like, because we did so good on our promotional exams. Maybe like the way we're studying and what we're doing, we could give that to other people coming up on the job, and turn it into a business and actually help them to get promoted. And that's what we ended up doing. And now I will tell you, for those viewers that are out there that are getting ready for promotion or have already used us, you already know that our questions and the way we do our work is definitely not for the faint of heart. Like it's hardcore stuff. You're going to be yelling and screaming. And I always tell my students, at the end of your study journey, I want you to hate me. Like I want you to say to yourself, Raganella stumped me again with that question. He got me. I hate him. Because if you hate me and you find out why you got the question wrong before the exam and correct it, you're going to see that on the exam you're going to do so much better. And we've gotten so much good feedback for preparing people for the exam that they love it. They absolutely love what we're doing. So we've done really well with it. And like I said, we have yes, as Woon said, we have our forum. We created a forum where everybody can chat online about the promotional exam process. If you go to risingstarpromotion.com, you can click on the link. It'll bring you to the discussion forum where everything is talked about and discussed with the promotional exams. Yeah, I mean, if you're serious about studying and you really want to go hardcore with it and be dedicated, I will tell you that like my study journey, and my wife and my family can vouch for this. Honestly, 12 to 14 hours a day the last 2 weeks before the exam, I was locked in a room studying and cramming for exams. And 6 months before that, anywhere from 5 to 6 hours a day, my head was in the book, writing questions, asking questions, doing stuff. And it was it's a sacrifice. You have to be dedicated, and it's a sacrifice.
And we're on this. All of us have passed 3 exams: sergeant, lieutenant, captain. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not something that you can do willy-nilly. The BS about people saying that so-and-so had a lucky Saturday, just because they're, not the best supervisor, not a good leader, doesn't mean that they didn't put the time in and the dedication in to study to pass a very difficult exam to pass. It's a 5-hour exam, and it's only 110 questions, but you should be taking up the vast majority, if not the entire time, to do that, to break down these questions. So it's very tough. I mean, Rob, the sacrifice, right? 6 months of your life, hours a day, build it, and you have to build it up. You can't just jump into 4 hours a day studying. You're not going to retain anything. You have to build your brain to it. So
somebody once said, the more you study, the luckier your Saturday will be.
That's what you create your own luck.
Yeah.
Like a lot of other things, oh, that was a lucky collar. Was it a lucky collar, or did my knowledge of the community put me in the right place at the right time to prevent or make an apprehension? Prevent the crime or make an apprehension, right? It wasn't a lucky collar. It was lucky. Oh, it was lucky that you were there. Well, I could have been, down on Avenue M when I was working in the 7-0 instead of being up on Cortelyou. You know what I'm saying? There's a difference. So yeah, it's all what you put into it. So
I will, Ron. I'll tell you, like, as you guys know from taking promotional exams, the books that you have to read, the hundreds and hundreds of procedures, and the thousands of pages that we have to know what goes on. What I tell my students a lot is repetition, 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 right? And I translate it to this analogy. We all have a favorite song, whatever song you like to sing. But you've listened to that song so many times that if I gave you a pen and paper, you could probably write out 99% of the lyrics to your favorite song because you've heard it so many times, right? It's the same way with studying for the promotional exam. When you read that stuff over and over and over again, and you filter it down and you digest it, and when you sit down to take that exam on promotion day, if you've done your homework and you've done it the right way, the answers just jump off the page at you and you're like, I got this, I got this, I got this. And it builds up the confidence. And that's what you have to do. And it's really two parts to it. It's not just reading it. Like, you can read the patrol guide all you want, but if you don't know how to answer the questions, because let's face it, your promotion rides on you being able to answer, whether it's 100, 110, however the quantity of multiple choice questions is that they use on that particular exam. Your promotion rests on being able to identify the right answer and answer the question. So even if you know the answer, they still write questions that throw tricks at you, where you have to be able to now break down the question and see where the tricks are. So we cover all of that stuff in our course to be able to know this both of them.
The website is scrolling across the bottom now. Do you have an email list or anything or that they can sign up for on the site?
Yeah, and so if they go to that site, they can click on the link for whichever exam is coming up that they're interested in or getting ready for, and they'll be put on a contact list that we'll send stuff out when we're getting ready to do the next course.
Tony, two quick questions. One was, did the NYPD OMAP ever ask you to come and write one of the promotional exams while you're on the job? And no. And two, what type of training for a Rising Star do they offer? Is it online? Is it CDs? Is it in classroom procedures and stuff? How's your class formatted?
Yeah, so we've transitioned a couple of times into different formats over the years since 2006. We started out really as like online with just questions and doing stuff that way. And then lately we started getting into doing, we tinkered a little bit with doing live classes. And we realized that the feedback from the live classes, like it was just amazing doing the live classes, because the students get so much more out of a live class. And and myself and Eddie both, like, will tell you, we love standing up in front of a class and teaching this stuff, because we can literally see the light bulbs in the eyeballs of students go off when we're teaching this stuff. They're like, now I got it. Like, I understand it. And it's very rewarding for us to see that. So what we've done now is what we're going to do on the next round of exams is we're going to have a full like learning management system also, so that we'll do a couple of live classes around the city. We can email the stuff to you. We can email it digitally to you. You can get it through the learning management system. You could sit for the live class, but we're also going to record the classes, so that if you can't make it on a particular night, you could just go to the learning management system and pull up the class that you missed and watch it on your own time. And then, of course, we're always available for, any questions that you might have about what something means or how to answer a question the right way, whatever. And we're always available for that stuff when we're doing our courses. And our course is usually generally 20 weeks long. And it's really a rigorous, tough course that can get frustrating at times, but the end result is the students really have a good understanding, and really what we're trying to do is just build up that confidence, because the last thing you want to do is walk into a promotional exam and be standing on that line waiting to get into the school or into the DCAS office to take the exam, and you're like, oh, that one procedure, I got lazy and didn't bother to read it. I hope they don't ask this question. I hope they don't. And you start wigging out. If you cover everything and you read the entire book and you do our course the way we teach you to do it, you're not going to miss anything. You're going to have everything, and you're really you're going to cover everything. You're going to have that confidence, and you're going to be anxious to get in there and ace the exam. So,
All right, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
And let's talk about your other venture.
Yeah, so 2015, as I said before, I started consulting and training, going around the country, and now it's morphed into I'm doing subject matter expert witness work in lawsuit cases around the country related to protests and demonstrations and use of force and different stuff like that. And then I consulting with different police agencies. I speak at conferences about protests and crowd management issues. So I tell you, I have no complaints. Life is good for me right now. I'm having a ball. And I really, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, everything happened for a reason. And I look back on it, and if this didn't happen, I wouldn't be this way. So I'm not bitter about anything. Everything is good. It all worked out in the end, and I'm having a blast right now. I'm really.
So you go around the country, and you do a lot of lectures, and you do a lot of PowerPoint presentations and everything else, and go over everything, right?
Yes.
And talk about disorder control and everything else, and with your schools and everything, you explain and break things down. So doing the research for today's show, I came across a PowerPoint that you did, and I'm just curious.
No, not you can't. You
I'm just
can't.
curious if you have any explanation.
You can't. No.
If you have any explanation for this.
Yeah, don't. You can show that picture, but don't play the video.
No. I'm just curious. I just came across you giving a presentation, and
I did a whole presentation on that word. Yes. Good stuff. Good stuff. Funny. I should have known. All
right, that's the last one I got, I promise. Maybe.
Good. Maybe.
But John, John, where'd that come from? Rob, any last final questions for Rob? Oh my God, see, we've gone so long that my brain is fried. For Tony.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the one question that Eric and John always ask. It's like, Tony, now you've retired from the NYPD. If you went back and could do it again, back to when you came on, 1995, would you? And you knew Tony, and you knew everything that you knew now. Would you do it again? And if you didn't know, would you recommend it to anybody else in your family? The job now, would you actually take that leap again, knowing everything that you know? Or would you look for another career in something else? And would you recommend this job to anybody in your family or anybody else that was looking at currently now?
That's a very interesting and loaded question, right?
It's not mine. It's John and Eric. So,
well, John and Eric, thank you for setting me up for this. It's as you have all seen through the last couple of hours. My career has been a little crazy. I got some good stories. I had done some good stuff. I've been through some nonsense and everything else. And I can honestly tell you that if I had to do it all over again, I would do it all over again. I really would, because even the bad things that happen, like I have the ability to take something bad and see something good in it. Like I always try to look for that silver lining. And when it happens, you don't immediately see it. It may take years later to look back on it and say, now I get why that happened, or what I learned from it, and how I won't let that happen again, or whatever. So even the bad things that happened to me, I would say I would do it again, because I learned from it, But that's 1995. If it was 1995, I would do it all over again. If you ask me today, knowing what I know now, to start a career now, I don't, as much as I wanted to be a cop, maybe I probably would be a cop somewhere, but not in the NYPD, not in New York City. I would find an agency that wasn't going through what it's going through. It's just, it's disheartening. It's embarrassing. It's horrible. Like when I have to go do presentations to other law enforcement agencies, there's times, depending on what's current in the news, I'm almost embarrassed to say that I'm retired from the NYPD, because it's just like they look at me and they're like, you lived through that stuff? Like it's just it's horrible. Would I recommend it to anybody? I'll tell you that my son is considering what he's going to do, and I would steer him away from it, from the NYPD anyway. He's 21 now. I would steer him away from the NYPD. But if he wanted to go into law enforcement, I know it's a very rewarding career. As far as I'm concerned, it's the most noble of professions that anyone could ever undertake. The ability to help people and the reward that you get from being a cop and doing what we do. But what goes along with it, depending on how the agency is run and what the organizational culture of the organization is, it can be toxic at times. It really can. It can weigh heavy on you. So NYPD, I would steer people away from the NYPD. But if my son wanted to go into something on the federal level, that's nice and clean job, and not, I wouldn't hold him back from doing something like that. No.
I appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
Listen, went really long. So we're gonna wrap it up now. Is there anything that you think that you left out? We appreciate you being candid, appreciate you being honest about your career, appreciate you being a good sport with everything.
Always.
You knew it was coming, and
Yeah.
I would expect no less from you if the roles were reversed. And anything that you want, any parting thoughts on anything?
No, listen, I'll just say, like, first thing is, obviously, first and foremost, thank you to you and Rob.
Did we just lose him?
This is not my first time on, but it's my first time being on where I could talk about my story. So I was very excited about it. I was running around the house today, and my wife is like, "My God, you're so excited! Like, you really want to do this podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love this stuff. This is great." I've always had a really good sense of humor, and I've had a good run. My life has been ups and downs and all arounds through everything that I've been through, but I wouldn't change anything. And I got to tell you, like I said before, this career has been phenomenal for me. I love the policing profession. And I really do believe that it's the most noble profession. And I have had the opportunity, just like you, Ron, and you, Rob, I've met such great people on this job that I'll always be friends with and always respect the work ethic from the majority of people that I've met. Of course, there's always going to be bad apples here and there that you have to navigate through, and the politics and everything else. But I don't regret what I went through, because I learned from it, and I had a good ride. And now, after my retirement from the NYPD, I'm on a whole nother roller coaster, and I'm having fun doing it. And I turned it into something great. And I would recommend to any executives or anybody on the job, if you're close to retirement and you're worried about what your identity is going to be after you leave or whatever, find something before you leave the job. Have something ready to go to. I was fortunate that I had the promotional school since 2006, the consulting company in 2015. So when I left, it wasn't like I was just sitting around on the couch saying, what am I going to do now? I immediately rolled right into the stuff I was doing, and it was a nice transition. And I would recommend that to everybody. Just be prepared for it and roll into it. But no, I had a great time, and I thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate it. Rob, any final thoughts?
Tony, great advice. And listen, anybody in the chat, tell your friends, everybody else, go to Rising Star Promotions. You see a lot of people, even in the chat, talk very highly of it. And I know if Tony and Ed are involved in it, it's the top of the line. And I would definitely recommend it. It's important. It's important. You need that little push. And Tony, always a pleasure talking to you. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you're doing. And like I said, you deserved a lot more. but you stood up and you made the best of it. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's just it's Rising Star Promotion, no S.com.
Correct.
We get that there. We actually had to fact check that last night. But yeah, listen, I double down on what Rob says. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. Like I said, we appreciate you. You were part of the show already, and now you got your story out there. You're welcome to come back anytime. Sometimes, last 2 weeks, Rob wasn't available. I wasn't available. Eric sat in. I know one time that you were going to step up and be a guest co-host. You're welcome to come on the show anytime. We have a Friday roundtable on the Finest Unfiltered on the day show at 8:05 on Fridays. We bring in sometimes past guests as one of the people in the roundtable, and I know that John and Eric think highly of you, and we're impressed with your expertise when you came on our show talking about disorder control and everything else. So don't be surprised if we reach out to you maybe for a roundtable one day, depending on what the topics are going to be.
Anytime.
And you're welcome here anytime if there's anything you want to get out there. So tomorrow, 13:05, 1:05 p.m., we have the Sal Greco show on the Finest Unfiltered Network. He's going to have who's he got coming on tomorrow? He's got,
I think it's Eric Sanders, isn't it?
That's correct. Eric Sanders is going to talk about the lawsuit with the 30 probationary police officers that are caught up in that Terrell Anderson scandal and were threatened with termination. And so he'll be talking about that lawsuit. He may be talking about other things. As we know, breaking news today during the Finest Unfiltered, the bombshell lawsuit by the former police commissioner. That'll be a discussion on Friday's roundtable at 8:05 with John, Eric, Marlon, and a fourth person to be named later. And please come back, join us next Wednesday at 5:05 p.m. here on the Finest Unfiltered. We'll be back with whatever is hot and heavy in the news or whatever topic we choose, but also we'll be back to the Ask an Executive segment. We didn't get a chance to get to it today because we're 2 hours and 45 minutes into Tony's life, but it was well worth the ride. Appreciate it. Appreciate you being on, Tony. Appreciate everybody in the chat for hanging in with us, being involved. Vinny, appreciate you, and also your assistance in today's content. And so
karma, Vinny, karma.
So maybe Vinny, maybe you want to come on one day and Tony can get even.
Oh, I got pictures of Vinny.
So thanks for everybody for hanging in there today. Long show. We appreciate it. Until next week, be safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.